from our MLB.com studios. My name is Darren Sutton. We trust to this point you've had a very good week. MLB.com's Adam McCalvey will be one of our color analysts. And then on the far side, Mike Petriello is the Stats and Information Director, does a great job guiding us through StatCast. So we're going to start with our starting pitching matchup, but we have some big news to get to. First, that starting pitching matchup. And when you look at Lackey, boy, John has been so good of late. As a matter of fact, his last 8 starts, a sub-2 ERA. It's 1.59 since May the 1st. It's been different for Gio. In his last 22 and 2/3 innings pitched, 21 runs allowed. So one, trying to right the ship. Lackey has been red hot. And we're going to break down some exit velocity curiosities I have about Lackey, though he has pitched very, very well. Now, news to be spoken about when you talk about with the back end of the bullpen for the Washington Nationals, because Jonathan Papelbon is going on the disabled list. The 15-day DL placed on it earlier today, right intercostal strain, I should say, in the rib cage area. Matt Belisle replaces him. This opens up, Mike, a spot for you, though, and you're somewhat excited. Belisle will not be the closer, obviously, but it does open up a spot.
I'm real excited, and not because Papelbon got hurt, of course, but because we get to see Sean Kelly, who I think is probably the most underrated reliever in baseball. If you look at the past 3 seasons before he joined Washington, he's basically Trevor Rosenthal without the save. Same strikeouts, same walk, same batting average against. If you look at the strikeout percentage from this year, since the beginning of last year, look at these are elite guys: Miller, Chapman, Kimbrel. Sean Kelly's up there. He's the reliever that nobody knows about. He's got a deadly slider, and he's using his fastball a lot more effectively this year. That's what's made him so effective. We're really excited to see what he can do in that 9th inning spot.
Yeah, we have to wait till the 9th inning, though. You can't just talk about it the entire time. I know you're so excited. You're excited about a move the Cubs made. Obviously, it was somewhat of a big move, but it may turn out to be the move of the winter, bringing Dexter Fowler on board the roster. He may have been headed to Baltimore. We never will know how that works out, but you like that move, especially now.
Well, certainly it was a bargain move, the bargain move. I think Daniel Murphy to the Nationals was another very good bargain move for what he's given them. But look at Dexter Fowler. Signs with the Cubs 2 days after everyone thought he had a deal with the Orioles, including his Orioles teammates who were excited, including his former Cubs teammates who were texting him congratulations. But Fowler has lengthened that Cubs lineup. He moved Jason Hayward to right field. He moved Jason Hayward down from potentially at the top of the lineup. Fowler is career highs OBP and OPS to this point in the season. And when you look at what's happened to the Cubs injury-wise, they lost Kyle Schwarber in left field. They lost Jorge Soler in left field. Dexter Fowler has given them some depth that has really come in handy. So a huge bargain move for the Cubs.
Joining Mike and Adam as experts tonight, Lindsay Berra, our national reporter. She is at the ballpark. Jamal Collier covers the Nats. He will be joining us as well. Tim McMaster will be working his way through the stands and interacting wherever he can. He's our T-Mobile Greater Coverage reporter. And Ashley Chavez right here in house. Now, you will interact with her, but you will obey the law and order of social media. So for that reason tonight, you're our social media sheriff. What have you found out right out of the gates? Hey, Ash.
Hey, do you like this is my sheriff stance.
Serious. I know. I'm a little scared.
Yes, we want you to join in on the conversation tonight. So send us your tweets and Instagrams using the hashtag MLB+, and we'll take a look at them, put them on the show if they're good, if I accept them. Speaking of good tweets, let's go to Jamal Collier. He is our MLB.com Nationals reporter. Since we spoke on it earlier, he let us know that the Nats have placed Jonathan Papelbon on the DL with an intercostal strain, ouch. But he also said, amazingly, this is the first time Papelbon has gone on the DL in his career. Pretty impressive stuff, even though I feel bad for him.
Good stuff. We all feel bad for him, certainly. Ouch, by the way, is not a StatCast metric. It is not at all. Make sure you tweet us your questions and use hashtag MLB+. It's not a metric, but StatCast has so many metrics, so many ways to follow the game. If you're joining us for the first time and you're watching on MLB.com, you may be asking, what is StatCast? Here's the answer.
Several years of research and development were realized in 2014 with the debut of MLB.com's StatCast, the first ever reliable measurement of every play on a baseball field. Pioneered by MLB Advanced Media and debuted with prototypes at the 2014 All-Star Game, League Championship Series, and World Series, StatCast's roots can be traced back roughly a decade earlier to MLBAM's introduction of pitch tracking. Pitch tracking delivered a never-before-seen wealth of detailed information regarding every pitch thrown in the major leagues. Though a bold move at the time, today, pitch tracking technology is ubiquitous throughout broadcast television and baseball's digital products. But despite the data compiled on pitching, never before have there been reliable defensive statistics. The goal with StatCast was to leverage the technology to ensure that defense could be quantified and that a more complete picture of our game be made available to fans. To that end, all 30 ballparks have been outfitted with 2 distinctly different but collaborative technologies to allow for the data capture, optical tracking, and radar tracking. High-definition video camera arrays spaced 15 meters apart to capture stereoscopic video, and a 3D Doppler radar system which captures 2,000 samples per second of the entire baseball field. By marrying the data from each of these systems, it is now possible to scientifically quantify the skills and talents of players on the field using new player performance metrics.
When the lights come on, everybody's screaming, lighters in the sky, and everybody's singing every word to every song of the girl they're taking home tonight. When the lights come on, everybody's screaming, lighters in the sky, and everybody's singing every word to every song of the girl they're taking home tonight. When the lights come on.
Good stuff from Broken Bow Records and Jason Aldean, and we're certainly glad to have you with us. The Chicago Cubs have got their bat rack ready, and their home whites and nats have taken the field. Let's take a look at the starting lineup for the Chicago Cubs with the aforementioned Dexter Fowler at the top, Jason Hayward, Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, Ben Zobrist. What a career he has had. We can safely say that now for the potent switch hitter. Baez, hit or miss a lot. Addison Russell has been nice of late. And you talk about the leadoff spot, it has been something special for the Chicago Cubs.
Yeah, you look at this is weighted runs created plus, so basically means 100 is league average. That means the Cubs are 45 percentage points above average at the leadoff spot. That is almost entirely Dexter Fowler, who's had a really incredible year. If you look at Fowler this year, percentage of batted balls over 100 miles an hour, 16% last year, 28% this year, and the league hits about 600 on that kind of batted ball. So he's really having a great season, as Adam said in the intro.
Well, folks, we're underway. 1-0 the count to Dexter Fowler, hitting .289, .397 on base as he takes over the inside corner with a slug of just shy of 500. That's out of a leadoff spot, and that's where that runs created plus comes in.
Yeah, he's having
Gio Gonzalez.
The best numbers of his career so far. That on base would be a career high, and the 884 OPS a career high. So again, we're talking about a $13 million commitment to a guy for 1 year, and this is the sort of production you're getting at the top of the lineup.
Well, spoil pitches like that, fastball away, couldn't do much with it. Taking the bump for his 13th start this year, Gio Gonzalez has a 3.93 ERA. When he's right, he's on the ground, correct? His ground ball ratio pretty good?
Sort of. He kind of had a weird blip last year where he became a ground ball pitcher. Most of his career before that, ground ball percentage 43, 44, 45. Last year up to 54%. He became kind of more of a sinker baller. This year back down to 46. So he's trying. I don't think it's working that well this year. You can see he relies on the four-seam fastball, but that two-seam usage is up. He's trying to be more of a sinker baller. Feels like he's been a little bit underrated in that rotation.
What a great piece of hitting. Staying back on a breaking ball. Dexter Fowler, the body leaned forward, but the hand stayed back, and he shot that curveball to the right side, so Fowler is on. It was not a bad pitch. It was not up. It was not, you don't want that breaking ball inner half. That was a good pitch and a good piece of hitting.
I don't even think that would have been a strike. That was a little bit to the outside, and really nice to get on it. And you know, that's the kind of stuff the Cubs are doing. They are the best team in just about every single facet of the game. They're almost unstoppable. Obviously, the Nationals are really good too.
Lefty trying to hang that left shoulder in there against the southpaw. Jason Hayward takes a strike right down the middle. 236, but his on-base percentage 100 points higher. That's how he's been his whole career. That's how his younger brother, who was just drafted out of Miami, was as a college player.
He's also, Darren, totally reversed his splits over the last couple of years. Before he went to St. Louis, the knock on Hayward was he can't hit lefties, and he's totally changed that around the last two seasons.
Hit that one hard, legs it up the first base line, but hit it right at him. As Adam said, turning things around, lefty on lefty, and he juiced that one, but it was right to Murphy. So he's on with the fielder's choice. Take a look at the outfield arms when we take a look at things defensively, Mike.
Yeah, Ben Revere not so great in the outfield. We looked at 124 different outfielders, and he was the third weakest outfield arm. Now, obviously, Bryce Harper is a very good outfield arm, but keep an eye on the ball when it goes to center and see if the Cubs try to take advantage of that.
And Espinosa at short, pretty good one, obviously. That's one reason he stays out there.
The best shortstop throwing arm in baseball. He's a really, really strong throwing arm. He's a good defender. And I think you're right. That's part of what's keeping Trey Turner down in the minors, because Turner is a better hitter, but Espinosa probably a better defender.
Dusty deciding to take a look at it, which is just right around the corner from where we sit. You had a chance, Adam, while we showed some of the graphics to take a look at the replay. What did you see right away?
Well, a bang-bang play, and it's interesting. Every manager sort of has a different way of going about this. Some guys like to sit on this until they're 100% sure. Other guys are going to gamble. That one looks like a gamble, just on the quick look. No, he looks on the replay. He looks out. This has been, I think, really interesting for the managers. And he is out at first base. That's you can gamble early if you know you're right. And I think there are a lot of managers in the game that they tell their replay guy, I don't want the thumbs up unless we know we're right. So that was one where the Nationals obviously knew that they were going to get that call.
Take a look from up above on the first base side. That's a great angle there. You could see it pop the glove. That was almost better than the low third camera angle.
That is a tough job. Those replay assistants, this was all new last year. Everybody was trying to figure out, teams had different strategies of how to do it. But talk about being, they want it quick, they want it immediately. That is a high pressure job. Those guys deserve a lot more credit. You see games change on those calls.
90.87 average exit velocity for Chris Bryant. You see 90.9. We take a look around our framing. We will continually have a glossary explaining some of the terms that Mike specifically is talking about that we will follow along with as well. You'll see spin rate popping down, pitches being thrown by, there's one that pops down on a two-seam fastball. The extension, think about a pitcher's height, how far he is getting and reaching out, and the perceived velocity that will follow with that as the changeup misses outside. So these are all things that tie into as we follow along. A lot of it will just be passively going along with the game. A lot of them Mike will grab hold of with some explanations, and Adam as well. Chris, 15 home runs this year, 14 doubles. He drives that one to right center field, but it hangs up into the sunshine, where it's put away by Bryce Harper. So a double play and a replay, and it ends up as the Cubs go down and they clean things up. Mike and Adam, and obviously a situation to get things started with the replay coming right into play. So John Lackey is on the mound, and I'm going to give you a chance to cheat ahead a bit since we don't run off to commercial break. You and I were talking about this on the production call. Since May 1st, John has had a 1.59 ERA. And opponents are hitting 171 against him. Yet his exit velocity has him very workmanlike, a very workmanlike exit velocity against. How do you put the two together?
I think part of it is that he's avoiding exit velocity where he can. His strikeout rate is up to 27%. That's by far a career high, and he's 75 years old, give or take. And the fact that he's been able to miss so many bats, I think really helps, and he's doing that. And then obviously he's in front of what is an outstanding Cubs defense. So I think you're right. He's, Jake Arrieta is the guy who limits exit velocity. That's his whole thing. But Lackey's missing bats, and he's getting the ball to go right to the outfielders, and the outfielders are doing a really great job. It's a team effort. I don't ever look at pitchers as being the one guy who limits runs. It's a defensive unit. That's the run prevention unit, and he's in a perfect spot for himself here.
Part of that run for Lackey and part of that domination was a start against the Nationals on May 6th. Remember, that was his second start of this spectacular run. We saw the pitch usage, and when you see a well-pitched Lackey start, Mike, you kind of do see the kitchen sink, don't you?
He's been on record as saying that he kind of approaches every start differently, and I think that's part of what makes him successful is you never really know how to prepare for him because he's not going to do the same thing every time. But one thing that he is really doing a lot more is when he gets to 2 strikes, he's not throwing it in the zone anymore. It was usually about 30-35%. This year he's down to 24% in the zone because he's hoping that guys will go and attack those pitches outside the zone and get strikeouts. So far it's working.
So Lackey is on the bump for the Washington Nationals. The lineup he will face has Ben Revere at the top of it, Jason Worth, and then Bryce Harper as we take a look at our T-Mobile, greater coverage cam, a beautiful view of the ballpark on a gorgeous Washington, D.C. night. Revere, Worth, and Harper, 1, 2, and 3. Daniel Murphy starts to maybe quiet down for like 5 minutes, but then he doesn't anymore and he gets hot again. You see the exit velocity for Ryan Zimmerman. I know you will stay on that point, Mike, tonight. Anthony Rendon, Danny Espinosa, and Jose Lobaton with Gio Gonzalez. But Adam, for you, Ryan Zimmerman has been the guy who has had certainly an up and down year, more downs than ups. They seem to be picking on him. Teams seem to be pitching, whether it be around Murphy or around Harper, and putting a little bit of pressure on Zimmerman.
Yeah, Ryan Zimmerman is the guy the Cubs in particular have picked on. 11 times this season, a team has intentionally walked the batter ahead of Ryan Zimmerman, and he's 0 for in those situations. He has yet to have a productive plate appearance. The Cubs account for 5 of those, and it led Dusty Baker in the earlier series, where it was walk city to Bryce Harper, to change his lineup. So last night, again, they walked Murphy ahead of Zimmerman. They asked Dusty Baker, he said he changed his lineup once to account for this. He's not going to do it again.
No balls and 2 strikes account quickly on Ben Revere. And when you scuff, when you feel like you step into the box 0-2, Revere hitting .211 this year and on base of .264. He's got 3 doubles. A guy that doesn't walk a lot, so if he's not hitting, he's not reaching.
I like Ben Revere, but, you know, you don't get to those numbers by accident. You look at exit velocity, right? 200 hitters have had at least 100 balls in play. He is the 5th lowest in exit velocity. We saw 83.8. The only guys below him, Iglesias, Billy Hamilton, Billy Burns, guys who don't hit the ball hard. But you're right, he doesn't walk a lot either. So it's kind of a rough spot for me that he's at the top of the lineup. We showed in the beginning that the Cubs have the 3rd best production out of the leadoff spot. Nationals dead last, mostly because of Ben Revere. I think they need to make a change at the top.
Darren, I think, you know, part of this is Dusty Baker. He has said coming into the season he wanted to be a running team. So he's got a guy in Revere who's the prototypical leadoff hitter, a guy who, you know, even if he hits the ball, you think he's going to beat out some infield hits if they're soft hits. He just hasn't got on base to the level that Dusty Baker wants. I think Dusty wants to run a lot more than he's been able to.
He doesn't want that exit velocity, though. A little sinking, dying line drive out to short, and that's what makes, between your two discussion, Adam and Mike, a very tough decision keeping him out there as Addison Russell puts that one away. Defensively, the arms in the outfield, obviously not with regard to strength out there. There's a lot of great range, but not great arms.
Yeah, nobody there really stands out. We've seen Hayward at times have a really good throw, but overall, just okay. This is an average outfield as far as arms go. But what we're going to show you a little later is that they cover more ground. They get to more catchable balls than just about anybody, and Hayward really has been a big part of that. I know he hasn't been hitting, but you wonder why the Cubs aren't allowing runs. That outfield is a big part of why.
So Jason Worth has been really good lately. His last 6 games, he's got 10 hits. He's got 8 walks. I mean, simple math, folks. I'm not the stats guru here, but that's getting on base 3 times a game in the last week.
He gave the best description I've ever heard of what it's like for a hitter when you're going like this. He said when you're going good and you stand there and watch the ball come out of the pitcher's hand, it's like seeing 1,000 snapshots as it comes towards you.
Wow.
When you're going bad, he said it's like 2. And I think that really illustrates what it's like a hitter. It's same hitter, same condition, same physical status, but sometimes you just see that ball so much better coming out of the hand.
See that average exit velocity of 92.7 for the veteran, 37-year-old Jason Worth. Not that time, though. He goes down on strikes. A couple of crafty ball players, and Lackey wins that battle. A couple of bearded battlers there.
It's interesting. Both of the hitters we've seen so far have taken the first pitch. And nobody gets more first pitches against than John Lackey in all of baseball. And so it seems like they're really trying to take a different strategy. I actually like going after the first pitch if it's a hittable first pitch.
By the way, 94.7 off the fingertips with that fastball on the velocity.
That's one thing, Darren. You know, Lackey's been in the league, as Mike said, 75 years old. But his fastball velocity has not wavered from his early days with the Angels.
Bryce Harper to the left side, and a diving, sliding play out there by Chris Bryant. A couple of superstars come within one play. Pitch was in and off the plate. Harper trying to inside out it, serves it into left field. This is a very nice play by Bryant. All about the first step. Where would he play when he got to the big leagues? He's looked pretty good since he's moved to left. And a nice play there by Chris as he puts that one away. That, I would imagine, has a chance of being part of the best, some statistical StatCast look defensively with regard to range and route efficiency. That's the Cubs. What about the best of the national StatCast? Here we go.
He's never hit a grand slam. How about a grand slam for 100? The pitch. Swinging a long drive. Right field. Way back. It is number 100. And it is a grand slam for Bryce Harper.
I mean, it's like you're watching a movie. Watch this guy play every day. I mean, okay, your 100th career home run's a grand slam, upper deck. I mean, that's curtain call. If he's ever had a curtain call, it's right now.
Listen to this crowd. Here comes the curtain call. Teheran pitches. And a swing and a long drive, left center field. Way back goes Peterson to the warning track. He'll watch this one go, and it's long gone. Into section 101, over the visiting bullpen. Wilson Ramos puts one in the home run column, his first of the year. Ramos with a big-time cloud as he put that one beyond the bullpen.
And this high fly ball will be near the barrier. Bryce getting there, and Harper has it. I mean, he closed some serious ground on that one, and that's a first out here in the 5th inning on a spectacular play by Bryce Harper.
Known his home ballpark, goes into a slide right before he gets to the wall.
See, you take a look at, with regard to pitching and work, and Gonzalez and the work he has done, and how you compare him to, someone very interesting. We welcome you back, by the way, to MLB Plus, our StatCast, presented by T-Mobile, I should say. When you look at all those numbers, what are you taking away from that comparison?
I think that Gonzalez doesn't really get a lot of publicity because he's got Scherzer, he's got Strasburg in that rotation. Compare him to Justin Verlander, who has been one of the elite pitchers in baseball. Those numbers since 2010 are almost identical. Now, obviously, I think Verlander's had some more highs and some more lows to get there, but Gonzalez is working on 6 straight seasons of 3 wins above replacement. That makes him an above-average pitcher every single year, and it seems really quiet. Nobody ever really seems to pay attention. He's one of the more solid number 3 starters in the league.
A career 3.63 ERA with 8.8 strikeouts per 9. And a strikeout rate that is about 23%, which is about 4% above league average. As you were explaining pretty well earlier, not necessarily a ground ball pitcher, has been year to year on occasion.
Yeah, he tried to last year. He started using that two-seamer more, and he got the grounders, and he didn't lose his strikeouts. And that's what made for a really good year. This year, he's kind of lost the grounders again, and he's kind of gone back to what he was. And, the last couple of starts, he's had one bad inning that's kind of killed him every single time, and I think it's what he's really trying to stay away from today.
30 years old, out of Hialeah, Florida. Check out White Sox first-round pick. White Sox, 38th overall, SUP pick in 2004. Out of Monsignor Edward Pace High School in Florida.
Now, his velocity is down a little bit. He used to be in the 93, 94 range consistently. Now he's kind of 91 or so. Not unexpected for a guy who's been around as long as he has, and not terrible for a lefty either.
Boy, that is a wicked pitch. It's been a tough year. It always is going to be a battle for Rizzo against lefties, but this is just, this is a 4-letter word if you're a hitter.
One thing, Darren, he's been very good this year at getting into games, which is a skill some pitchers struggle with. He had 31 straight scoreless first innings, and then he gave up 3. As Mike was saying, the big inning has got him. Last start, it was the first inning.
That is such a nice pitch. You know what? Rizzo is a good hitter against lefties. For being a lefty hitter, he's not a guy who's got a real big platoon split. But I don't know what you're going to do with that kind of pitch other than just kind of watch it for strike 3.
28.06 the spin rate on that breaking ball.
That is very, very high. Average spin rate for a curveball is about 2,300. And we know that high spin on a curveball is great because it tends to drive the ball into the ground. It's got top spin, and it'll dive quicker, which is great. It's exactly what you want a curveball to do. Curveballs that stay up tend to go about 500 feet.
Good fastball hit on the ground. That's Ben Zobrist with the bat in his hands, a switch hitter on a 5-3 ground out. Zobrist is having a fabulous year, matching some of the earlier best years of his career, hitting .319, slashing .426, and slugging almost .500 that time. They got him with the ground ball out. Well, the interesting thing, just to finish a thought on the spin rate and the curveball to Rizzo, I think your point is so well made, driving it to the ground. It takes away, to the eye, folks, for baseball fans, that looping effect on a curveball. That's what you don't want either. Even if it's one that's lower in the strike zone, it almost takes the hump out of the pitch if you have a great spin rate. It's fastball, fastball, fastball out of the hands, and then boom, the bottom falls out.
Yeah, what I've read is that when Sandy Koufax is in Dodgers camp and he's trying to teach young pitchers how to throw a curveball, what he says to them is visualize a bucket on home plate, and you want the ball to land in the bucket, which means it's got to go downward. And that kind of just really changes your entire visualization about how to throw the pitch.
That was a good one right there. I mean, if that's a little get-me-over breaking ball, his curveball is sharp so far tonight. There you see the spin rate at 28.85. Extension of 5'7" for a pitcher that stands taller than 5'7". That means he cuts himself off a little bit, but not to get too advanced in it, folks, with regard to mechanics. That means he's recoiling. That means his body's almost hitting a wall. And that really does help with the curveball.
Yeah.
And that actually really does help.
And what extension means is really where are you releasing the ball from? Because the mound is 60 feet 6 inches away. You don't actually have to throw the ball from 60 feet 6 inches away. It's really as far as you can get off while you still feel comfortable. And boy, that's a nice pitch right there. Nice start.
Nice start, and the curveball is in vogue again. He went ahead and spiked that one. Now we know Javi Baez can swing and miss with the best of them. That's his 27th strikeout to go with 3 walks. He is always aggressive. He's improved a lot in that category, but it's a very strong start. A very strong start, Adam, for Gio, coming out with a good repertoire of everything, but especially the curveball.
The curve, and what we've seen so far is he's able to spot it for a strike when he wants to, and then this pitch where he's able to throw it in the dirt. That is a heck of a skill for a pitcher. And again, to have that going right from the start, it bodes well for the rest of his outing.
You were talking about the danger that Anthony Rizzo provides. I mean, that's where this was what makes it such a great show. Runs created, weighted runs created plus, and the interest there, because you just look at just simple numbers, batting average, you see a lower batting average, you see it's a battle. There are things we can look at beyond, obviously, and that's one of those with Rizzo against lefties. Not fair in that matchup, but that's one of those that comes into play in a show like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, weighted runs created plus, it sounds like a scary stat, but all it really is at its basic core is you get a certain amount of credit for a single, and you get more than that for a double, and more than that for a triple, and more than that for a home run, and then you average it by league and park, and that, batting average doesn't do that, and even OPS doesn't do that. So it's a really interesting way to see who's performing, and no doubt about it, Anthony Rizzo is performing.
So it's kind of scary if you're every other team in baseball, simply put, and you're dealing with the Cubs, whether it's interleague play or whether it's National League teams. This is a single-season starter ERA, epic start at 2.34, and you start comparing them with teams from decades and decades ago. It's just incredible.
It's incredible. You look at this. I mean, since 1969, that's the divisional era, and that's basically before this era. That's when offense is at its lowest. So that they're above that, I think, is really impressive. I actually looked further than this in the live ball era. If you go back to 1920, if you look at their ERA compared to what it was for the league average that year, they are the #1 team of the entire live ball era going back almost a century. Now, will that keep up for the entire year? Probably not. That's a really hard thing to do. But this is a great pitching staff with a very good defense behind them. It's like the perfect combination.
John Darren Lackey, the veteran right-hander, 6'6", 235, ready to roll. We'll be facing Daniel Murphy, Ryan Zimmerman, and Anthony Rendon. Talk about rediscovering yourself from a couple of years back, Lackey. Kind of dropped his elbow below misses high. He's throwing hard tonight, too.
Darren, he pitched against the Montreal Expos. That's how long he's been around. And as I said, you look at the velocities over the years, 91, 92-ish average fastball, and that has not changed. That's something that a lot of pitchers, as they get on, are going to have to change the way they pitch. He has not been forced to do that, at least because of velocity. He's, I'm sure, a different pitcher than he was as a young Angels right-hander, but that velocity has stuck with him.
Murphy's been tough to get out all year long. He hits that one hard on the ground to second base, hitting .367 with an on-base of .409. And that time he hit it right to Zobrist, and they managed to get him that time. It's been an average exit velocity for Murphy, as we saw earlier, of nearly 91, and his high is almost 110, 109.59 earlier this year. And now Ryan Zimmerman. And you will tell us why optimism still may reign for Mr. Zimmerman, though it's been an up-and-down year.
Ryan Zimmerman is tied for 5th in Major League Baseball in exit velocity, right? And that's obviously really impressive, over 94 miles an hour. Now, he hasn't really had himself a great year, but if you look at it, he really had an atrocious April. And then you look at it in May, he crushed the ball, .542 slugging percentage in May. He was a guy we looked at last year where he was trying to play through a bad foot for about 3 months, and his exit velocity was terrible. And, I'm always pushing on the bandwagon, don't try to play through pain because it's never going to work. Finally takes 6 weeks off, he comes back and crushes the ball, and you can see his exit velocity jump, and it's really stayed there since. So I truly believe success is going to follow for him because he's hitting the ball so hard. It's hard to hit the ball that hard and not have success come with it.
So Zimmerman awaits the results that go with it. Lately, it's been a tough go, and I mean just the last couple of days. He's hitless in his last 14 with 4 strikeouts in that time. Batting average for balls in play is .253, and this time he goes down. Looked like a good tight slider got him that time, and Lackey beats him, and that's his second strikeout.
Yeah, Greg brought up the slider, variously called a cutter or a slider, depending on who's talking about it. His slider has improved so much over the years. It's his #1 strikeout pitch. He's actually more than doubled the strikeout percentage on it over the last couple of years. So far this year, hitters are batting 103 against that slider. It's a really effective pitch for him, and it's his best pitch.
I have always wanted to know, Mike, and now that we're sitting here on camera, I can ask.
Oh, you have me hostage now.
How I've always wondered, is there confusion, cutter slider? Because I hear the same thing when you're talking to players. It just depends on the guy of what they're going to call it. And how does that screw up the stats?
It does a little bit. That and also the two-seamer versus sinker, which are very similar pitches. Sometimes it could be literally the exact same pitch and just two guys will call it something different. A lot of it's just semantics almost. Now, I like to think there are slight differences in velocity or movement where you could probably say this is a cutter, but if I say it's a cutter because the data says that and I go up to John Lackey and he tells me it's a slider, it's going to be a slider. So you do have to kind of mix those pitches a little bit when you're trying to compare. But it's a good point. You're absolutely right about that.
2-0 the count. Rendon sees that crossfire look. Drops down almost sidearm. 2-1 the count. That's the other thing Lackey is not afraid to do. You see that last pitch at 94.6 miles an hour. Perceived velocity with an extension of 6.4. Very similar, right at 94. Extension similar to his height. And he was back out there with the fastball. Is he racking up some season-high velocity numbers, or at least close to?
That pitch we had in the first inning was his third hardest pitch of the year. His average coming into the game is about 92.3. Even this last one was 93. And if you look at what he's done so far, I see 93, 94, 94. I'm going to guess by the end of this game, if he keeps this up, this is going to be his hardest velocity of the season. Now, it looks like it is a warm night in Washington, and that always helps. Maybe it's just that I can hear from the sounds it's a full ballpark. It's almost like a playoff atmosphere. He seems like the kind of guy who would really get up for that against a team like this. So, yeah, really good velocity from him tonight.
Likes the playoffs. Pitched in them 23 times with regard to appearances, 127 postseason innings. There's that breaking ball. There's the slider. That is the strikeout pitch that we talked about. Boy, both of these pitchers are really, really on their game tonight. Their secondary stuff as well. We have seen Addison Russell do some things defensively in this game, and we will see him lead off the next inning, Addison Russell. And he is a young man getting better before our very eyes. Jim Callis from MLB.com's Pipeline with a little bit more on Addison Russell.
It may be a little hard to believe when you look at Addison Russell today, but when he was a high school junior in 2011, scouts were really disappointed with his athleticism. He allowed his body to get a little thick and heavy, cost him range at shortstop. It affected him at the plate. But to his credit, he really cleaned that up as a senior in 2012, wound up going 11th overall in the draft to the Oakland A's, and that looks like it's going to be a steal, but it's going to be a steal for the Chicago Cubs, who acquired Russell in a trade that sent Jeff Samardzija and Jason Hamill to the A's in 2014. 9 months after the deal, Russell was starting in the infield for the Cubs at age 21, began his rookie year last year at second, moved over to short, and he's going to stay there for a long, long time. He was more about defense as a rookie. That stood out more than his offense as he was getting acclimated, but the modest numbers he put up last year aren't any indication of what he can become. He's got good bat speed, good approach. There's a reason that he's been compared to Barry Larkin and Miguel Tejada. I think once he gets comfortable at the plate and once he's in his prime, you're going to see Addison Russell not just play solid defense at shortstop, but you're going to see him hit for average with possible 20 home run power for the Cubs.
Welcome back to MLB Plus. I am Ashley Chavez. We want you to join in on the conversation, so make sure to send us your tweets and Instagrams using hashtag MLB Plus throughout the broadcast, and we'll put the good ones up here and talk about them. Speaking of good ones, I have a few. And earlier the other day, I believe, Anthony Rizzo and Chris Bryant were at Washington, D.C., walking around, seeing the sights, wearing the best shirts maybe of all time. This is fantastic. And of course, Chris Bryant and Albert Amora got a little lucky. They got to go into the White House and see Bo and Sonny. That's incredible. Too bad they didn't get to see the president, but it's pretty close. Guys?
Good stuff, Ashley. Nice badge, by the way.
Thank you.
Well done by you.
Thank you.
Social media sheriff. Keep it clean. Keep it clean, folks. You will be keeping an eye on it. We're glad to have you back with us, Mike and Adam, and Darren will get out to the ballpark where Lindsay and Jamal, Tim are all getting ready to report for us. They're taking in the first couple of innings, and we're putting them all to work with insider's perspective and reactions from the stands as well. We heard the story of Addison Russell. He digs in and he takes strike one. Fastballs for both Gonzalez and Lackey have been show-me pitches, and that's not to be disrespectful to their effect because both are throwing really hard, but it's the secondary pitches that have been so effective for both. There's one, a good slider. Topped and then out there, Addison Russell.
Yeah, that continues what's been a really, really rough month for Addison Russell. I believe he's leading the All-Star voting, and he's a great young player, no doubt. But if you look at his stats for the last month, he has been one of the three, I don't hate to say the word worst, when we said anyway, hitters in baseball. And now obviously Giancarlo Stanton up there at a 12. That's an entirely separate conversation because he's a total mess right now. Addison Russell has really had himself a tough month, and I don't think people notice it that much because the Cubs have been great. It's kind of easy to hide when you're winning and winning and winning. But if you look at his career so far, he's been a below-average hitter. He's a good shortstop, but I think at some point they're going to wonder, is he going to be the superstar people thought he might be, or is he just going to be a good, solid player? Nothing wrong with that, but maybe it's not the guy that you kind of thought when he was coming up as a prospect.
Mike, the thing, though, is elite defender. And I think that is why the Cubs will give him a good long leash.
Sure.
And they have all these young shortstops in their system. And Baez is playing all over the diamond. But for a lot of teams, you would not mess with this kid. He would come in and he would be your shortstop, and that would be the end of the story. So I think that is going to help Addison Russell, at least in the Cubs' eyes, move forward because he can save some money.
Sure, he's not going anywhere. They're not going to replace him, and I still think the trade that got him from Oakland is going to go down as one of the bigger steals of the last few years. Just so far, it's been a little bit of a rougher go because you look at the other shortstops who've come up and have an immediate impact. Corey Seager, Lindor, Correa, all these guys, Trevor Story, and he hasn't really been able to do quite that. I do agree with you. Time will kind of help him get up there.
0-2 the count on the veteran David Ross. It's he instead of Montero getting the start tonight. Ross at .233 with 4 home runs this year, .333 on base and slugging .411. So some nice work as he has on and off throughout his career. He's got 9 hits and 8 walks against left-handed pitching this year. That's a .459 on base in limited playing time for the solid backstop. David's in the middle of a tough June, just 2 of 17, but I don't care if you're young or old or what your age is, part-time play doesn't lend itself to hot streaks.
Yeah, the Cubs actually have 3 catchers on their roster right now. Because Montero obviously is a starter, and Tim Fedorovich is there as well. So it's tough to get playing time, and it's kind of rare you see a team carry 3 catchers. So you have to wonder how long Fedorovich is going to be up. Ross, considering he's kind of a defense-first guy, has actually been a better hitter than I think people think. .315 on base percentage for his career for a backup catcher. That's not too bad at all.
That breaking ball. We were talking about the breaking ball that he struck out Javi Baez to end the second inning. A spin rate of 29.59.
That is really, really good. It's pretty rare. Sometimes you see a guy get over 3,000. It doesn't happen that often, but that means that ball had a lot of movement on it, and you saw what happened to Baez. He had no chance against that ball.
And then the thought of the breaking ball makes the fastball at 93.9 that much more effective.
Yeah, the breaking ball low and the fastball up, I think it's probably my favorite combination of baseball. I love guys who can throw the high fastball. A lot of pitchers are afraid of it because they think if they miss, it's going to get hit really hard, and maybe that's true, but you get a lot of strikeouts up there.
Also from the left side, I have always thought 93, 94 from the left side to hitters looks like 96, 97 from the righty because they don't see that. They just don't see that kind of velocity. But that's changing because everybody's throwing 100 miles an hour now. But for a long time, that really helped left-handed pitchers.
John Lackey with a bat in his hand, his 3 hits and 30 at-bats. He's walked once, a pair of sacrifice bunts. A T-Mobile greater coverage cam peeking in from behind home plate. As that one darts over the outside corner.
That was a great view from this camera. You could really see that 2-seamer kind of go back away from him. Love that angle.
Lackey, base hit to the right side. How about 4 for 31?
Yesterday was Addison Russell breaking up the no-hit bid for a Nationals pitcher, and today Lackey. So the struggling guys spoiling things.
Skycast version of this strikeout is powered by Amazon Web Services.
Love that high strike. Love it.
Dexter Fowler, Adam McCalvy's class favorite, digs in.
I think you made a great point before, Adam. At the time, it seemed like it seemed like a luxury, right? Because they had Schwarber and Soler and Hayward, obviously, and Coghlan at the time. And now it seems like a necessity. Like, I don't know where they would be without him in center field, because you really didn't want to put Hayward in center field. You didn't really trust anybody else in center field. He's been an amazing fit there.
I also think it lengthened that lineup, because Hayward was probably going to be your leadoff hitter. And now you move him down, you move everybody else down one spot, and it gives them depth. And again, it's the injuries that no one could have seen that coming, obviously, but these injuries have really made it a case where they've needed Dexter Fowler.
Now, the fact that he's hit like this, I think, has been a little bit of an unexpected surprise for a Cubs team that didn't really need another boost, and this is where they got.
Well, remember that day in spring training, what a boost it was, where they surprised the team, and Joe Madden, he had probably the most fun spring training of any manager in Major League history, and he brings Dexter Fowler out. Nobody saw it coming. They all thought he was an Oriole. And here he showed up in spring training. That was one of the highlights for the Arizona clubs down in spring.
Line drive, base hit left field, pulled his hands in nicely. And so Lackey picking him up and putting him down. Finds his way all the way into third, and so the Chicago Cubs making a little bit of noise. It's a funny thing, man. Just one little hit every 3 or 4 outings by a starting pitcher, what a difference it can make in flipping that lineup over. Fowler's 2 for 2, by the way.
Yeah, these 2 hits, by the way, Lackey, 94 miles an hour. Fowler's 85 miles an hour. Not like you're getting crushed here. These are balls that are just over the infield. Not too much defense can do about that.
To keep that ball fair was impressive. A ball that far inside, pull the hands in. 9 out of 10 are going to foul that off, but Fowler is swinging a hot bat.
There's that tight spinning breaking ball over the outside corner. 29-40 spin rate on that one.
Now, Hayward actually has been heating up a bit. He gets off to a slow start kind of every single year. And this year, I think he had a wrist injury early in the year, and then he banged himself all up on that catch in San Francisco against the wall. Been really good in June, and there's another base hit.
He's been really good. The pitcher come on down the throw to the plate to slide. Fowler is safe. That allows the runner to move up in the form of Hayward. And the Cubs strike first, and they lead it 2-0. It all started with a base hit off the bat of the old man pitcher, John Lackey.
And it's Hayward coming through against a left-hander. Again, Darren, that was the big knock on him as a player. He was such a good ball, he crushed righties, but they said he couldn't hit lefties. And he has changed that now and completely flipped his splits to the point where he's a tough out now for a left-handed pitcher.
Yeah, that's another ball that wasn't actually hit all that hard, 83 miles an hour. So kind of tough luck for Gonzalez here. He was getting limiting the exit velocity, but not so much that he's actually getting outs out of it. Yeah, you can see here, as I said, Hayward starts off, this is his career, and where 100 is average. He's below average in April for his entire career. Even in May, he's only ever been okay, and in June he starts heating up, and as the summer goes on, he really starts looking a lot better. And we're seeing that this year. Coming into this game in June, he was 50% above average, and that's before that hit.
Boy, things change so quickly. Dominating stuff, both of these pitchers, and one of the pitchers gets things started. Hayward hanging in there against lefties, keeping that front shoulder, that right shoulder tucked.
Now, it is never good to give up a pitch to a hitter. I'm sorry, give up a hit to a pitcher. And it's especially never good here because now you have to deal with Bryant, Rizzo, and Zobrist. But there's just nowhere to go in this lineup that you have to get the pitcher out. How do you feel about intentionally walking Bryant to get to Rizzo and Zobrist with men on?
Well, I like it after the first at bat against Rizzo, where Gonzalez was sharp, got him on the curveball, lefty. I think much rather in this situation take my chances with that matchup again based on how it went the first time.
StatCast replay powered by Amazon Web Services. John Lackey hitting, John Lackey running.
Yeah, 94 miles an hour. That's pretty good for John Lackey. It's not elite or anything, but I'm sure a pitcher will absolutely take it. And it might end up being the key to this entire rally here.
You let his boys know that he got up to 17 miles an hour on the base pads.
Well, as you said before about Gonzalez, it's always been that one big inning. And I'm starting to wonder if that's what we're watching right now.
0-1 to count to Anthony Rizzo. Rizzo struck out looking back in the second inning. 2 outs in the inning. Cubs lead it 2-0. Weighted runs created plus. Hanging in there, doing damage against southpaws. You were explaining that to us earlier. And Rizzo has done his damage.
We have actually 2 guys in this game. These are the best lefties against lefty pitchers over the last couple of years, and obviously Joey Votto is great. And then Rizzo and Harper are tied for second. And you see a lot of lefty guys who just really cannot hit lefty pitchers. It doesn't apply to these guys. They are just elite young superstars who hit pretty much everybody.
I think Brandon Belt will surprise people on that list because he's
absolutely.
a guy, and that was the knock on him. Good young hitter, crush righties, can't hit the lefties.
And he's having the best year of his career. I think there's actually an argument to be made that he should be the starting first baseman for the National League this year in the All-Star game. I don't think he's going to get there, but I think you could at least make the case. He's having a great year for San Francisco.
Huge shift defensively. Base runners are keeping on Brian. Pretty good lead. They're not being held at first, obviously. Rizzo can hang around and be really patient, too. 35 walks, 34 strikeouts. We talk about that contact rate for a guy with power, a guy who's so dangerous. Strikeout rate has really dropped this year. Been choking up on the bat with 2 strikes. That's a power hitter, folks. Choking up on the bat. Didn't help with a breaking ball like that. Woo, baby. Big breaking ball and very, very tough to deal with. But the Cubs strike, and they strike with a pair. John Lackey starts it all with a single, and he gets it going. Jamal Collier is covering the Washington Nationals, doing a great job, our MLB.com reporter. Before the ball game, he had a chance to have a conversation with shortstop Danny Espinosa.
The results have obviously been there, probably about the last 7 or 10 days especially. And you kind of felt like you had good at-bats all season long. Is there anything specifically except the results that have changed, or what's kind of been going right for you so far?
No, I haven't changed anything as far as my routine and my approach. Just stuck with it. Knew that I had been having good at-bats. And, if I just continue to have good at-bats and put the ball and play hard, that I thought over time it would start turning my way.
Yeah. You mentioned before that it used to be a tinker, or you used to kind of, have the tendency to kind of change things. What kind of helped you this time, avoid that tendency and not mess with things? Just the fact that you felt good, or what? Yeah, it was just the fact that I felt good, and Rick Shue and Jock Jones and I, all 3 of us had been, just stay right there, and we had good work, and just wanted to continue that. There was no reason to, spread the stance, do something with your hands. There was nothing about that. Just continue your approach, have good at bats, and over a period of 500, 600 at bats, plate appearances, things will start turning your way.
Well, he's always got some fun with his photo day beard. He always wants to make it a mention, makes a point to make that. But this is what has happened since Trey Turner was recalled from AAA, Mike.
Yeah, I think Espinosa, maybe got some motivation. And Turner was only up for a couple days while Zimmerman was on the paternity list, so he went right back down. Espinosa's kind of had a really tough season up until the last week or so. And what this has really done is bring his season up to essentially his career averages. He's about 10 or 12% below average, but he's not really there for that. He's there to be a really good shortstop. He said he's got the best throwing arm of any shortstop in baseball. But I think the question for the entire rest of the season is going to be how long does he keep that job, or does Trey Turner come up and take it?
Jamal, we had a chance, and that was a great interview, by the way, to see how good Danny Espinosa and how dangerous he could be. For more than 300 games in 2011 and 2012, slugged over 400, hit 38 home runs. When you got inside of his head a little bit before the game today, is that confidence coming back? We know he can work with the glove. What are some of your takeaways from that conversation?
Yeah, Danny kind of has been saying all season that he's felt good about his at-bats, and he's alluded to it a little bit in that interview, is that, he wasn't sure why the results weren't there. And there were signs, too, that his line drive rates were pretty much around his career average. His batting average on balls in play was way down, and he just kind of wasn't getting the hits. As you see here, kind of works out for him with a bunch. But, Yeah, I mean, it really wasn't getting a hit. So for him, the last 10, probably 14 days, these have really been positive signs for him that he's stuck with his approach. He's stuck with things he's been doing. And he's driving the ball for power. He's getting some balls to fall that weren't before, getting some better luck than you've seen. And it's starting to make him feel a lot better at the plate, and really has been very positive for the way he's added to his offense.
Hey, Jamal, it's Mike. Do you think that the decision is really that they're winning and they don't want to shake things up, or do you think they really think that Turner has more to work on in AAA?
You know, I'd say that plays a little bit a part of it as far as the fact that they're winning and they don't feel a need to kind of blow things up or make a move as far as cutting, you know, whether it be Stanley Espinosa or Steven Drew, because they'd have to probably get rid of one of them. You wouldn't, you know, there'd be no need for all three of those guys on the roster. But I think some of it is the fact that they think Turner needs to work on some things defensively at AAA. There's no question right now that Turner has proven, I don't want to say proven, but he definitely looks ready offensively. They should get an extended look. But, you know, as far as defensively, shortstop, they want a guy who really can handle the glove over there, especially when you think about the guy that is playing next to you at second base, and Daniel Murphy, who is obviously not known for his defensive presence as well.
Jamal, it's Adam. How's Trey Turner handled this? Sometimes a young player can get frustrated with the up and down, especially a prospect as heralded as he is. From your conversations with him, how has he handled this?
Yeah, and he's handled this pretty well. You know, he obviously is alluded to the fact that he's competitive, and of course, everybody wants to play in the major leagues. But he's also said that there's some things that he wants to work on, things that he wants to do defensively. He called them stupid mistakes that he keeps kind of making there, and he had committed 8 errors before he came back up for the paternity list leave. So there are some things that I think that he knows that he can work on and be better defensively. I'm sure he feels like he can compete, and you know, having a sign like he did that day, he went 3 for 3. Kind of just builds his confidence to know that it can be chomping at the bit, so to speak, to come up here and hit it and contribute. All signs point that right now he's accepted his role and doing well, and kind of just waiting for his name to be called.
Jamal, we appreciate it. A little bit later on, we'll talk with you about Jonathan Papelbon. Thank you, my friend.
Thanks a lot, guys.
So it was a bunt single for Danny Espinosa. That will help the batting average for balls in play. That will certainly help. But a pretty bunt, he took it with him. A strikeout of Jose Lobaton. Lobaton in that backup role, the veteran catcher out of Venezuela. And now a chance to see a pitcher hit who handles the bat pretty well. 3 of 17, 8 strikeouts for Gio. That one high and tight. Did it get his hand? And it looked like it did, and that'll hurt. The right wrist, he's grabbing the back of the right wrist, not his throwing left hand. Trying to lay one down, and a fastball got wide. He's got 3 sack bunts already this year, rubbing that wrist bone.
Yeah, I don't think that was the plan. That one got right away from him.
When you have that lower arm angle at times, it can be so effective, and for Lackey, that's been part of the effect. But as he drops down there, you'll get the run in. And for Lackey, pitching in is always going to be helpful, but with that lower arm angle, that elbow below the baseball on occasion, the wrist on the side of it, you can really lose control running up and in, and that's what happened there. He just wanted to make it a tough pitch to bunt. Ben Revere lined to short. And respectfully for Ben, if we use the term lining loosely, it's an exit velocity of about 55?
Yeah, 57, I think it was.
All right, so we wouldn't have gotten a ticket for it.
Does that qualify as a line out?
That's well stroked. That's into left field. That's what he's wanting to do. Let it travel, hit it hard, a pitch down and away. That's almost, for a good contact leadoff hitter, which he hopes to stay and become, that's almost in his wheelhouse, right down there?
Yeah, that's exactly what he's got to do. He's not going to hit home runs. He just needs to get it past the infield and get on base. And, you know, there's a pretty nice piece of hitting in his strike going away, and that's exactly where you want to put that ball.
A 221 batting average on balls in play coming into this series. What does that mean when you're talking about a guy who's, as you said, he's not hitting the ball hard? How do you read those two against each other?
Yeah, so that's about 100 points or so below league average, and so you can read that as bad luck, which it might be somewhat, but it's also, you can kind of make your own luck, right? When you're not hitting balls hard, when you're not forcing the defense to make any plays, I think in Revere's case, since we do have exit velocity now, you can kind of look at it and say it's not really bad luck, just a guy who's not hitting the ball hard, and that was a really nice hit there. But I think we need a lot more of that because we've seen, going back to last year, he's always been in the lower 10% or so of exit velocity. Just not his game. He doesn't hit balls that hard.
I've talked to players, guys, who have said this is one area where they think the exit velocity is useful, and as they can look at the batting average on balls in play. And forever, guys have said bad luck or good luck the other way, but now this gives them kind of another metric to go on, another read.
Watch the arm of the right fielder Hayward as he fires it home. It's cut off, and a run will score, sacrifice fly, and an RBI. Jason Worth. He got the job done. He was beaten by a lackey fastball, but he elevated. And so Danny Espinosa's bunt comes on down to score 2-1. The Cubs lead the Nationals here in the third inning. So runners on first and second now for Bryce Harper as we take another look at the fastball up, but Worth elevated it plenty.
Yeah, that's one of those situations where it's entirely about the game situation, right? Any other time he went up after that, he didn't crush it that hard, about 94 miles an hour, but he got the run home, and that's really all you can ask for because Worth, even though he's been better lately, he's been kind of struggling. So really, at that point, anything you can do to get the run home, it's absolutely what you need to go for.
0-1 the count to Bryce Harper. Harper against Lackey with an average exit velocity of 95.1. So he's had his successes against him.
The Harper is slumping, right? But we should all be so lucky to have a slump like that. For the last 6 weeks or so, since the beginning of the Phillies series in late April, he has been exactly a league average hitter. And for him, that's terrible. There's a lot of guys who can't even get to league average, right? And I think that says a lot about how great he is. But I think that there's kind of a narrative about the Cubs series where they walked him about 13 times in 4 days that kind of broke him, and it's just not really true because he was starting to struggle before that series for about 2 weeks.
Two and 1 the count on Harper. Walked 52 times, struck out 43 times. Oh, those walks. That's quite a take on a changeup that dives down and out of the zone.
That was a very good take. There's really been two issues with Harper. One is that he has just not been aggressive enough. Even on balls in the zone, his swing percentage is down by nearly 20 percentage points. But also balls at the top of the zone, right? These high strikes, he's really just been getting crushed on. He used to really eat those up for dinner, and now he's had a really hard time with high strikes.
We talk about taking a good changeup and doing the right thing here.
Yeah, a little low. You could tell he wanted to go after that one.
Then he took a strike, the next pitch. Yeah, that plays right into what you're talking about.
That has got to drive John Lackey crazy because you make a really nice pitch. You want to swing on that.
And his walk rate, over 20%. There's a hitter out in Arizona that has a high walk rate as well, that if you just look at Paul Goldschmidt's batting average, you would be curious about his year, but no one pitches to him either. These are two of the big younger players in baseball. Paul a little bit older, but Harper still just a kid, a very, very young man, and being pitched like a legend already.
You know, Darren, they went to him before this series and asked him about his quote-unquote struggles. As Mike was talking about, all hitters should be so lucky. And Bryce Harper said, as much as you guys think I'm struggling, I'm still one of the best players in the game.
I love that.
And how many guys are going to say that to a crowd of reporters? I love that.
He takes in. He's on. He's that gear behind. And his bodyguard, who's been a really good bodyguard right behind him, is just, every time this happens, or at least the majority of the time, this man feasts, and that's Daniel Murphy.
Daniel Murphy, the only one so far to get a ball hit harder than 100 miles an hour tonight. Daniel Murphy, over the last calendar year, .355 on-base percentage, .530 slugging percentage, better than Bryant, better than Ryan Braun, better than Anthony Rizzo. I think, and that doesn't even include what he did in the postseason last year.
He drives that one well struck to right field, but it's squared up. He did have an incredible postseason, and he hit that one hard. He went down and got that breaking ball from Lackey, but it was hit to the perfect spot. It's the 12th annual night out at Nationals Park, and certainly some heavy hearts as well surrounding the efforts, but a lot of social responsibility and leadership in Major League Baseball's Vice President of Social Responsibility and Inclusion, former Major Leaguer Billy Beane. There are his words just too long ago.
I think baseball makes people happy, and it brings people together that don't necessarily come from the same background or the same color of skin or same gender, same sexual orientation. And if we can provide a product that makes people take their mind off something as sad as what happened, Florida, Orlando, it's a huge part of the spring training part of the calendar, and it's a part of baseball. And regardless of where it happened, I think it's just great that I've learned in the last 2 years that I've been back in baseball that our sport understands our social responsibility to our communities, and this is just another example of reaching out.
Leslie Jordan throwing out the first pitch. A little something high, a little Louis T on it there. Ended up on his backside. Louis only ended up like that when there were line drives hit back his way. That's great. And great atmosphere at the ballpark. Then, as we said, Major League Baseball, too. Many of the teams in Major League Baseball as a league with heavy hearts for what occurred this week in Orlando and those that lost their lives in the tragic shooting. And so the celebration tonight is combined with some heavy hearts around Major League Baseball as well that will stay heavy for quite some time based on this tragedy. Adam McCalvy, Darren Sutton, Mike Petriello. We have heard from Jamal Collier doing a great job. We'll hear in a bit from Lindsey Berra. Tim McMaster is out there. And it's MLB Plus presented by T-Mobile. Gio Gonzalez will face Ben Zobrist, Javi Baez, and Addison Russell. Well, where do we start with Zobrist, guys? Well, here's a guy that won himself a ring finally last year in Kansas City, and he's always been a guy that's overachieved a little bit out of Dallas Baptist University. As you take a look at our T-Mobile greater coverage cam from behind home plate. It's just been a really nice career. You can say it. He's 35 now. He's got a couple of years on the contract. He certainly has earned himself later in his prime a nice 4-year, $56 million deal that rides the next 4 seasons.
You look at all these teams that have really kind of come back from way far behind to become contenders, even over the last decade. And you can, get high picks and you can build it the right way. But they've all got to have somebody who comes out of nowhere, right? And, for Ben Zobrist, that was him on the Rays. They got him for Aubrey Huff. And he was kind of a prospect. It wasn't a big deal, and all of a sudden he became Ben Zobrist. You look at the Cubs now. They got Jake Arrieta and turned him into Jake Arrieta. Even the Astros, Dallas Keuchel was not a very effective pitcher for the first couple of years, and then he became a Cy Young winner. So you can do all the right things, but you still have to have a little bit of a stroke of luck to kind of find these diamonds in the rough.
He's been really good, Darren. He leads the majors in on-base percentage, and he's been really good for the Cubs with 2 outs. He had a big May, 25 RBIs, and 18 of those were with 2 outs.
He is on, patiently waiting. The versatile infielder reaches with a walk. Speaking of versatile and talented infielders, and we hope that if you're a Nationals fan, maybe you're seeing a little bit more out of that with Danny Espinosa. Tim McMaster is standing by, our T-Mobile greater coverage reporter. Tim, obviously, they want to see the future. They want to see Mr. Turner. They'll take all of the hot hitting from Danny Espinosa at late. What's the vibe in the seats on Danny Espinosa being out there lately?
Yeah, thanks, guys. And I know you talked to Jamal last half inning a lot about Espinosa, and obviously things are a lot better now than they were a week ago. But that said, I was shocked by, as I walked around the crowd, I basically spent the first 3 innings polling the crowd here about who should be the shortstop for the Washington Nationals, and about 90% of the fans said Danny Espinosa, which I thought it would go the other way. We all know the backup quarterback syndrome, whatever it is. You always like the guy on the bench better than the guy that's starting. But about 90% said that they absolutely believe in Danny Espinosa. And then they kind of said this year. So the future's a different story. And then they kind of wavered a little bit. I said, okay, what if I asked you that a week ago? And they said, well, a week ago, I'm not sure. I don't want to answer that question. And then one guy actually said, I got it all figured out. I'm all for Danny Espinosa as long as the Nationals trade him before the deadline and bring up Trey Turner. So the fans are tough, as in any ballpark. If you're hot, they love you. If you're cold, they don't. Right now, Danny Espinosa's hot, and the Nationals fans are fully on board with him and his glove because they all brought up the defense, staying at shortstop.
It's always interesting. Everybody loves prospects in baseball, and I feel like this is a baseball phenomenon much, much more than other sports. I don't think in other sports you see people clamoring for the backup quarterback as much as you do in baseball as them clamoring for the backup shortstop. And I would love for one of you to explain to me why in baseball we love prospects so much.
Tim, why don't you start by answering that question, and then we'll ask the guys here on the desk. Why do we love baseball prospects more than any other sport? And especially lately, is it the availability of information on these players?
In baseball, success is 1 for 3, right? Which means you're failing 2/3 of the time, which gives fans a lot of time to get down on a player, even if he's playing well. So I think when you see a slump, you look over the shoulder. Not to mention that fans are always, big fans that are following a team always hit those play box scores.
Yeah, Tim, I think he's absolutely right about the availability of information, but I think it's just that you can see those guys playing in the minors now. You can watch ILB TV. You can't really see the backup quarterback, so in one sense, I think the absence of watching him fail makes him a more appealing option than the starting quarterback if he's not any good. But you're right, everybody wants to dream on the next big thing until he comes up and doesn't hit immediately, and then it's get rid of this guy, bring in the veteran. The rookie's not ready.
Tim, thank you. We appreciate it. Tim is our T-Mobile Greater Coverage reporter. Checking out the vibe in the ballpark. Gio Gonzalez with the runner in scoring position facing Addison Russell now. He took a piece of Javi Baez's bat off, and it ended up being an easy play. Baez is 0 for 2. Here's a look at this pitch.
A robust 78 miles an hour off the bat for Javi Baez. He's become a really interesting player. He started all 4 positions in the infield, played a little bit of left field, gotten the strikeout rate down considerably, which is nice, but the power hasn't really followed it just yet.
0-1 the count to Addison Russell. Russell grounded out back in the 3rd inning. When you read into numbers, you want to be careful not to make too much of them, but when you think of young, aggressive hitter trying to find his way, and you know that he's facing a left-handed pitcher over and over again when he sees enough of them, you would think, historically, pretty good numbers against that left-handed pitcher. Well, Russell screams over aggression because when you see a young right-handed pitcher hitting below 200 and striking out a lot against southpaws, it kind of want to interpret just over aggression. Letting that front shoulder fly open a little bit too early. Maybe having those eyes come off the release point. Lefties have gotten him this year. That's almost not fair, though.
I could watch him throw that pitch all night long. Really impressive. Yeah, 27.79 in that curveball for spin rate. As you said, the league average last year is about 2,300, so that's considerably above average, and that's why you're seeing such great movement on it.
Oakland's first-round pick, 11th overall in 2012, out of Pace High School in the Pensacola, Florida area, Addison Russell. A good fastball that spins him out of there. That curveball a moment ago, you were talking about the spin rate of it. Started in the other batter's box.
Russell looked like he wanted absolutely nothing to do with that pitch.
13 home runs last year out of that position. Slugged just .389 though. Addison tells a story about when he was a young man finishing high school. Barry Larkin came to town and did a clinic. A lot of good things to say about the position, and that's when he really decided that's where he wanted to stay. Then he looked at himself and his range and his motion, and it was the next summer when he was part of Team USA in their program that he lost 30 pounds. And for a young person to do that in the middle of playing sports, that was a really tough yet wise decision for his mobility. Runner on the move, stolen base. But the runners move up, so no stolen base. That is ball 4.
You think back to what might have been if the left side of the Oakland infield was Addison Russell and Josh Donaldson. And that might have changed the entire franchise.
Yeah, I know.
The beauty of that deal, too, is he goes for Samardzija and Hamill, and the Cubs, because of the timing of that, and then emerging from this period of rebuilding, they're able to get Hamill back, and it makes it even a more lopsided trade.
Last time up, David Ross came up empty with a strikeout. By the way, there was a stolen base for Zobrist. Runners are on first and third. Ross last time up. We take a look at our StatCast replay powered by Amazon Web Services.
As you can hear, David Ross is not very thrilled with that pitch. It's a spin rate on that fastball of 2,300. It's a little bit above average, and you throw it high, and I swung right under it. It's a really nice pitch.
That was Ben Zobrist's first steal of third base since 2013, so he is reversing in age before our very eyes.
Into center field, it's a base hit and an RBI. And the Cubs add another one. Zobrist patiently works his way on. He moves on around with a broken back ground out. Russell draws the walk. And oh, by the way, he steals third on the walk, and David Ross with an RBI. 3-1.
He's having some kind of triumph season, Dan. He said at 39, this is going to be his final season. And Cubs players are now lobbying for him to continue to play. They don't want to get in the way of what he wants to do family-wise. But he's caught a no-hitter this season. He hit his 100th home run. I think his teammates were more excited about it than he was.
And 97 miles an hour off the bat there. And he said, as you say, it's his final season. He said that's made everything so much easier for him because it takes all the pressure off. He doesn't have to worry about his next job. He can just go to the ballpark and enjoy himself. And, obviously it's really working out both for him and the Cubs.
John Lackey singled. He started a rally just 1 inning ago. Top of the 4th inning, Cubs lead it by a score of 3-1. MLB Plus, presented by T-Mobile. John's 4th hit of the year. That one got the outside corner. Last time out, Gio Gonzalez against the Chicago White Sox went 7 innings, gave up 3 runs, struck out 10. Was not supported in that one, lost 3-1 through 116 pitches. It's been a funny thing in his last 4 starts coming in. He's given up 21 runs in 22 2/3 innings and struck out 31. It's been pitches like that have gotten him the strikeouts, but they're mistakes that have gotten to where he misses in the heart of the plate in the strike zone.
And in that last outing, Dan, the 3 runs scored in the first inning, then he was really good for the rest of the game. He definitely was one of those where he got better as the night went on. This outing, it's kind of been the reverse, where he started off looking so sharp and so unhittable with the curveball. And starting with that Lackey, the soft single, it's gone downhill.
Nice show of bunt there for Lackey. 2 double plays rolled up this year, fairly low total for the left-hander, and 65 opportunities, only 3% of the time. League average is about 11% of the time. Do you get a ground ball double play? This may be a good candidate here if he can throw a 2-seamer low. And instead he throws that wicked breaking ball into the dirt and gets a strikeout of Lackey.
Yeah, that was a nice pitch in the dirt. 20 on 40 on the spin rate is amazing. Even for a slow pitch, it looked like Lackey was about a week behind on that. He didn't decide he wanted to swing it out to the last minute, and by then it was way too late because the ball was already dropping. We've seen that nice pitch from Gonzalez a lot tonight.
He gets Lackey, now Dexter Fowler. Adam talked about Fowler coming on the air as one of the sneaky great signings in the offseason. He has got a couple of singles. He's got a run scored. He needed it. His last 6 games, he only had 3 hits without a walk and 9 strikeouts. He was 3 for his last 26 coming in, was Dexter. A really good pitch. Starts knee high to a pitcher, and it looks good. That one stays high to Dexter Fowler.
Yeah, but the best thing you can do when you're a hitter is to hit the ball hard, right? If you hit the ball 100 miles an hour over, the league is hitting about 610, which is great. Fowler has gone up, as I said before, from doing that 16% of the time to 28% of the time. So whatever change he's made, it's allowed him to crush the ball, and it's made him an amazing signing for the Cubs.
Good location down and away as that one is served to right field. It's been the little things over the last couple of innings, and that's kind of the story of the Cubs, isn't it? The little things, the pitcher with the base hit, the walk to lead things off for Zobrist instead of being overly aggressive. Addison Russell, the youngster, he earns his way on with a walk as well. It's the veteran catcher coming through with a base hit. Not trying to do too much, guys. Adam using the big part of the ballpark. I mean, you look back at David Ross and his base hit, that's just a wise old man not trying to be a hero.
It is, and it was a huge hit with the pitcher coming up next. And we talk about David Ross. I think he gets this. He's the backup catcher. You don't expect huge numbers from him offensively. But if you look at his production against left-handers, the slash line is 321, 459, 571. So he's been producing at a high level offensively against left-handed pitchers. So they're going to pick their spots with him. But he's not just some backup catcher who's on there to catch John Lester.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at the game so far, Gio Gonzalez has not allowed a ball hit harder than 97 miles an hour, yet there's 3 runs on the board. So not getting beat around, just kind of poor placement, and that's unfortunate for him because he's looked better than I think his final line score is going to be.
All right, weigh in on some national news, gentlemen. This is what's going on around the rest of Major League Baseball while we have a moment. Unfortunately, Garrett Cole with a right tricep strain. Had a chance to spend some time with him last week, and we all know how important he is to the Pittsburgh Pirates. And the consideration for Wright with neck surgery, and we will see what happens there. You hate to see that. And then Ichiro Suzuki standing 1 shy of Pete Rose's record, including his hits in Japan, 23 shy of 3,000 here as a Major League player, 23 shy. So I let you go. No, you go. You weigh in on any one of those subjects.
I think it's really bad news for David Wright. If he gets that surgery, probably out for the year, and you have to start wondering what the rest of his career looks like. Either way, the Mets are going to need a third baseman for the rest of the year because I don't think Wilmer Flores is going to get them into the playoffs.
So, Adam, the unfortunate thing that happens is we get thoughts from others, and obviously Pete Rose has accomplished what he has accomplished, and we're in this information age, which is why we're sitting here. We love the information age. We get to do this as part of our jobs. But I just hope we celebrate Ichiro. I mean, someone may be frustrated of who cares what it all means. This is an amazing baseball player.
Yeah, I've always wondered this. We debate matters like this in sports all the time. Why can't there be lots of good things happening? Why does one have to be the best? And, you know, LeBron's achievements are lesser than Jordan's or vice versa, depending on your point of view. I think everyone can agree that Ichiro is a Hall of Famer in both countries. And 23 hits away from 3,000. Just what he's done in Major League Baseball is an astonishing feat. And yes, he's not going to get credit for the hits in Japan. They're not going to be on his MLB record. So I'm not sure why this needed to be a debate.
Listen, if Pete Rose doesn't like it, then I tend to like it. But listen, Ichiro has become the best contact hitter in baseball this year, which is insane. I think he came into the day today with 6 strikeouts. You think about Clayton Kershaw, he's only given up 6 walks. A lot of guys strike out 6 times in 48 hours. The fact that he's really been able to, at his age, kind of come back and be a pretty decent player, especially with Stanton struggling down there. He is incredible, and he's a first ballot Hall of Famer in my book without question.
Ryan Zimmerman struck out back in the second inning. As we move to the bottom of the 4th, the Cubs lead the Nationals by a score of 3-1. MLB Plus is presented by T-Mobile. A StatCast presentation of the 2 best teams in the game. Washington coming in with a .625 winning percentage. The Cubs .694. Cubs 8-4 in this matchup since it started last season now.
The part of me wants to see Washington win some of these games because if these teams do get back together in the playoffs and Washington doesn't do something in the series, all we're going to hear about is how the Cubs have owned them and how the Cubs have their number and in their heads. It's really just that the Cubs are a really good baseball team. But it'd be nice to see Washington kind of come out of this with something because they're a really good team themselves.
I think the Cubs have learned, though, that there's a difference between the regular season and the postseason because last year they dominated the Mets in the regular season. Then they met again in the NLCS, and it was 4 games and out.
On the personal side, we talked about the professional side of Zimmerman and what the numbers tell us in his exit velocity this year. This has been a guy that's been easy to pull for. Head of Zim's Foundation, does so much great work with MS. His mom, Cheryl, has battled MS since 1995. Family weekend coming up with Father's Day, and family very important for this gentleman. Zimmerman has been a huge part of this franchise on the philanthropic side. And it touches from his family as well. Number 1 Nationals pick, 4th overall in 2005. Fastball, that is a beautiful pitch over the inside corner.
You can tell that Lackey was working a game there. First 6 pitches were all low or low and away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then that last one, right up in the middle, slightly inside. You could tell that he changed Zimmerman's eye angle. I was kind of surprised to see Zimmerman let that go. Looked like a clear strike to me. That is a veteran pitcher really setting up the hitter.
And he took a little bit off on this pitch. I think there was a pitch over 95 a few earlier. That one was 93.3. And that can make a huge difference during at that.
0-1 the count to Anthony Rendon. Good fastball misses off plate. Rendon, another one who makes community a priority. He's a board member of the National Youth Baseball Academy in D.C., and Bryce Harper's on that crew. Taylor and Ross are teammates, all part of that, but he's a board member. And on off days or times after late night flights, he'll go and meet with those and make sure the kids in the community, where it's possible, have a place to play baseball.
Rendon's been red hot for the last month, but they got off to a really slow start this year, which was disappointing because last year was kind of a lost year for him after that great 2014. If you look at him for the first 5 weeks or so of the season, about 30% below average, a 298 on base percentage, and that's no good. Over the last month, 405 on base percentage, 526 slugging, 53% above average, and a big part of that, even though he insisted to Jamal Collier last week he had made no changes, which of course that can't possibly be true when you have that kind of production. The numbers say otherwise. He has started being much more aggressive at strikes, which is exactly what you want. Before he was letting half of strikes just go by, and now he's only letting about 35% of strikes go by. He's swinging at good pitches. That's what all hitters should want to do.
He spoiled that good strike down and away, and we were peeking a moment ago from up above our T-Mobile greater coverage cam. We go back up there. Such a unique ballpark. So many great vistas, and we appreciate that view from T-Mobile.
Now, could that change in approach be a new spot in the batting order? He's been a guy who's hit second so much for the Nationals recently, and Dusty Baker moved him down to 6th, 7th in the order, and it's sort of coincided with his hot streak.
It has coincided with that for sure, so you could definitely compare it and say that the last month has been with that spot in the order. Whether that's actually changed his approach, I don't know, but I've certainly heard players say, they don't know what to do with themselves in certain spots. They feel like they have to do this, they have to move the runner over, and in a different spot, they can just go out and hit. Very possibly true.
Picking on a breaking ball that time, Rendon got it a little bit down off the end of the bat, so he is 0 for 2. Different hitter against lefties and righties. An OPS of 948, Rendon against lefties. It's 200 points lower against righties. That one a fly ball, center field. And an easy chance, a 1-2-3 inning. Danny Espinosa goes down, so 4 in a row. Sat down by Lackey. Give a veteran a couple of runs, and he makes a very, very big difference. Lackey is settled in that time. Good curveballs, good fastballs in and off the plate. So Lackey, he and his Cubs lead it by a score of 3-1. Stepping aside for just a moment, but not too far. This is our very best of the week. This is StatCast, our look back.
The line drive into left. Springer was headed back to second, but now he's going to try to score, and the throw is in time. Dickerson on the fly to the plate. Conger tags out Springer.
Boy, and I got to tell you, Dwayne, I was absolutely shocked that Gary Pettis down there at third base was sending him. Great job, Dickerson to Conger.
3 of the last 4 batters as Johnson sends Neuenhuis way back, ball carrying Neuenhuis. Oh, he made the catch. Kirk Neuenhuis pulls one back. A home run saving catch by the former Met.
Yeah, it would have been out. It certainly would have been out. He got back to the wall and jumped straight up and knew exactly where he was. Well done.
That ball is ripped to right field. It is on its way to Mount Rainier. Goodbye.
Well, that's a home run. Whoa. Oh, that one almost went in the other deck. It hit the facing above the seats. The Rangers are teeing off on Iwakuma. They're behind 5-3, but if he was a heavyweight fighter, he'd have been knocked down about 5 times in this game.
Is powered by Amazon Web Services. How about one that hits home as he leads off the inning? We statcast the ground covered back in late May by Mr. Jason Hayward.
Now you think about it, this is a ball that probably goes out of most parks. That is to the deepest part of the field. So while Hayward, of course, made an incredible play, it's a ball that a lot of other outfielders never have the opportunity to because it's well into the stand. And you can see he gets up there and makes a perfect route to the ball, and unfortunately I think he got injured and was out for a couple days. Fantastic catch by Hayward.
Running over his shoulder. Sorry about that, Adam. Running over his shoulder. Not even running straight ahead at almost 20 miles an hour. That's incredible, isn't it, Adam?
Yeah, and the most incredible stat to me is 4 days. That's how many days it took him to get back in the lineup. I remember watching that live, and you thought, this is a very scary, serious injury. The way he went into that sort of unguarded head first, that can be very dangerous for an outfielder, so playing with abandon, but he was fortunate to avoid injury on that one.
Before the Braves made him a very high draft pick, their first-round pick in 2007, he was committed to go to UCLA. Didn't make it out to Westwood. He puts that one on the ground out to short where Espinosa throws him out. You know, people at times talk about the difference Hayward can or cannot make with his bat. Maybe not the danger that people talk about Boyd, but he can save some runs. You talk about his ability to change a game, and you analyze things defensively now, and you think about we've all grown in understanding the game, and this is why a larger contract is earned, and it's not always all about offense.
No, and you look at that, and 109 defensive runs saved. You can kind of say that 10 runs, give or take, is a win. So you could argue that he's provided 10 wins just with his glove. And I think, it's easy to look at the shortstop and Simmons and understand that. I think it's hard to look at the outfielder and kind of get that same idea. But there's no question he's elite by every metric we have, old and new, and even the newer ones we're coming up with StatCast.
Good pitch down and away. You saw the shift. The changeup gets a swing and a miss from the left arm of Gonzalez. Now, we've seen the Nationals moving around the infield a lot tonight. We don't see the Cubs, guys. You guys have pointed that out a ton for us in our production meetings, and I know we're going to make that a subject as we go throughout the rest of the night. As that one misses low, the Cubs just don't play along, which is surprising because it's Joe Maddon.
It's Joe Maddon who is perceived to be at the forefront of this during his time in Tampa. He's not doing it with the Cubs. I don't have an answer for this. I wonder whether it's that they have such good pitching that they can pitch to the defense where it is instead of shifting. I think that has at least something to do with it. I also think the veteran pitchers have something to do with it, because in covering talking to players as this has evolved, there are pitchers who just don't like the shift. They're uncomfortable with it. And with the Cubs having some of the veterans that they have, I wonder if that's playing a role in it too.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I don't know this for a fact, but I could easily see a guy like John Lackey saying, I want nothing to do with this. I want the guys where I want the guys. He has actually, John Maddon has been quoted in saying that he uses it less because, in his opinion, there are fewer, dead pull left-handed hitters in the National League than there were in the American League. And this is a guy who saw David Ortiz for all these years and all the guys that the Yankees have always had. He doesn't think that there's as many of those in the National League, and so he doesn't use it as much. I also wonder if he doesn't need to because the defense is just that good on its own. He doesn't need to help give them that boost. But I am surprised to see them that low. I think we said that they have the second fewest. That was surprising.
Two of the last three breaking balls with a spin rate over 2,900. Rizzo went down with a swing of the bat. This is our StatCast powered by Amazon Web Services. Look back.
That was beautiful. Just to watch that dip like that, you have no chance.
Well, he stayed on it that time. Got a lot more of home plate, and it's a diving play out there. Nice job as Ben Revere face first into the grass at Nationals Park. That breaking ball got a little bit more of home plate than he wanted. Good first step, though. Breaking ball up out over the plate. Good first step. Go ahead and set out. Give it a try. You don't have the most fleet of foot, and you know your outfielder will be behind you. Lindsey Berra is part of our team at the ballpark. And before the game, she had an opportunity to catch up with the manager of the Chicago Cubs, Joe Maddon.
You kind of, you know, quote unquote, invented the shift in Tampa, reinvented the shift in Tampa, and you're not doing a lot of it here.
Right.
I think you're second least shifts in the league at the moment. Is it
And our defense is playing really well.
I know.
Yeah.
So explain.
I think it's just a function of the teams you're playing against.
Okay.
You know, I've been asked this question. I haven't really broken it down specifically, but I think the American League East back then was like chock full of heavy left-handed hitters that just pulled the baseball.
Okay.
I think it's gotten away from that a little bit. Like last night, for instance, you saw Murphy hit the ball on this side of the field. You've seen Harper hit the ball on this side of the field. You look throughout the division, St. Louis might have one or two guys that are heavy pull. It's a lot of right-handed hitters, a lot of right-handed pitchers in the from what I've seen in the NL Central, which we play half of our schedule against. So it just seems to be right-handed. I think that has something to do with it. You still will overshift on some right-handed hitters, but of course they're fewer and farther between. So I just think it's a function of the group that we're playing against combined with, I think organically, you know, hitters are starting to make adjustments because they don't want people to do that to them.
Well, Adam, this is what he's talking about, and the subject goes on 12% of the time on balls in play when you would think Maddon would be at the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, and it's interesting to hear him talk about it being a left-handed hitter issue as well, because we just saw the Nationals shift on a right-hander, Bryant, and you see teams all throughout the league now, they're shifting. It's not a left-handed hitter thing. It's not a David Ortiz thing anymore. Teams are shifting throughout the league on lefties and righties, and what you're also seeing is teams shifting as the counts change. They'll get into a 3-ball count and you'll see infielders move around, or they'll get in a 2-strike count and a lot of movement. So it's been fascinating to watch that each team has a different philosophy on this. The Cubs are obviously playing it as straight up as any team.
Well, Lindsey Berra, whether it's music or red wine or defensive alignments, Joe Maddon is always ahead of all of us, and he seems to be. Maybe in this one, he's just ahead of us again, huh?
I think he's ahead of us with everything, and I don't really think his philosophy has changed on this. I think he's just also one of those people who's willing to let go of his philosophy if it's maybe not going to serve them. And in Tampa, in the AL East, where there were a lot more lefty pull hitters, as he was saying, he was fine, shift, 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 but you can't stick with the strategy that's not working. So he's just said here, the hitters just seem to be a little bit more diversified. He was also talking about guys who will hit pop flies to the opposite field and ground balls to the pull side, and it's you know, just kind of hard to decide what to do with those guys, and playing them straight up is the best way to go.
Picking on a breaking ball and hitting it into right field, Jose Lobaton with a base hit.
Well, again, just on Lindsey's point, I think the teams that do shift a lot, this is the next frontier now, is they're shifting outfielders as well. And you see certain teams like the Pirates and Brewers have brought outfielders in, and you see them sometimes in these alignments, and you go, what in the world are they doing? It looks different to the naked eye. So again, to me, the fascinating thing is teams trying to each decide how they're going to do this. And there's such a wide variance right now from club to club of who's doing what. Again, I still believe that the Cubs pitching staff has a lot to do with this.
4-6-3 double play, and that ended very quickly. Lindsey, I'd like to ask you before this inning quickly comes to an end, and you can ask it on any given day because he's such a forward thinker, as we mentioned. On this day today, what was the aura around Joe Maddon like? Because as someone who isn't around him a lot and misses being around him, there is an aura about his leadership, isn't there?
I think that as from a reporter standpoint, everybody out there hangs on his every word. His players are so behind him. He's got all these T-shirts that he's selling now, try not to suck and do simple better and all these things. And there isn't a guy in that locker room who's not wearing some sort of Maddon cult T-shirt. Fans, everybody just wants to touch him, and he signs more autographs on the field than any manager I've seen in baseball at the current moment. He's definitely become sort of like a cult figure within baseball, and I think people outside baseball are starting to know him too. But he's just so smart, and as you said before, whether it's wine or books or RVs, whatever it is, he has an opinion and legitimate, you know, good information about whatever you want to ask him. So it's tough not to want to talk to the guy.
And he communicates better than anyone, doesn't he?
Oh, he's terrific. He's terrific, and his players believe in him, and it's really obvious to see when you see the product that's out there on the field right now. And granted, he's got good players, but the players have to believe in the manager and vice versa to have things go this well, and it's working pretty well at the moment.
All right, Lindsay, thank you. We'll check back in. Good stuff with him on shifting. That's awesome.
Thanks.
Under review, guys. We are sneaking a few peeks on some different monitors, same monitors they're looking at, and looks like that could definitely be a safe.
Yeah, it looks safe to me.
Again, right around the corner from where we are broadcasting this game is Major League Baseball's great review center.
It was fascinating to see that this afternoon, Darren. That's my first look in person at just the scale of that operation. And I know managers, players have different views on this right now. I think the best way to look at it is if you're going to get it right, get it right. Some players and managers don't like some of the bang bangs. They don't like looking at neighborhood play. They don't, whether a player's shoe comes off by a millimeter. But you're either going to go all in or you're not. And just by the scope of that operation next door, baseball is all in on this.
Look at this replay. That is so close. I mean, I think he's out, but I'm not really sure you can't really go wrong with this one. As I've always said, we should take cameras into the replay room, which is right around the corner from us, and try to break the answer.
Technically 3-6-4 on that one. I think I called it wrong. So 3-6 on the fielder's choice ground out. So he's safe. And Ben Revere, who in his last 8 games has 13 hits, including a single back in the 3rd inning, steps in.
I don't think we can really say enough about how effective this Cubs team has been at run prevention. Right, obviously Lackey, but Arrieta, all 5 of their starters, at least up until a few days ago, had ERAs below 3, which is obscene when you think about it. Hector Rondon is their closer, who's really good, but he doesn't get any saves because they don't ever have any opportunities for him. And we were talking a little bit earlier about them being historically great, and I think that's true. If you look at the numbers going back almost 100 years, no team has prevented runs like they have.
And you talked about a great number. We know about OPS plus, how you gauge it from 100. I know you were educating us on the number ERA minus, and how well the Cubs have done historically, going back several generations of baseball. And that ties into A, pitching, and B, defense, right? I mean, putting the two together?
Yeah, it is one single run prevention unit. And it's not just the hitter, not just the pitcher, it's also the defense, it's also good luck. And there it is. You can see by a lot. What is ERA minus? It's exactly the same thing as OPS plus, ERA plus, where you're trying to index it to the league. So you can say 100 is average. You just flip it for pitching because lower is better. So what that means is that they are 36 percentage points better than average this year, and that's a huge gap between the 2nd and 3rd and 4th place team.
A fascinating graphic because you're looking back at a different era of baseball, and then for those of us who were watching it at this time, the 1993 Braves stand out as one of the great pitching teams of all time. To think they're in that sort of a category is impressive.
Can I ask you how impressed I am with our graphics department for finding the 1926 Philadelphia Athletics logo and putting it up there? Because that is stellar. But you're right, it's not just a little bit of a gap. Everybody else is 1 point, 1 point, 1 point, and there's the Cubs at the top, 10 points. Can't say they're going to keep that up all year, but I mean, they are on a literally historic pace.
Well, Lackey's doing his part tonight. He's got his 3 runs. He's given up just the 1, and he paints the outside corner to a fellow veteran in Jason Worth. Tom was really good last time out against Pittsburgh. 7 shutout innings, didn't walk anyone. There he elevates, goes up the ladder, changing the line of sight.
Love that hashtag. What's funny about that graphic we just had up, talking about how the Cubs have been great at run prevention, and I still hear people saying maybe the Cubs need to go out and get a starter at the trading deadline. I don't think people believe in Kyle Hendricks, who is actually pretty good. I don't know if people believe in John Lackey, even though they should. I mean, what do you think, Adam? They really need to go get a starter? Because I feel like they're pretty good where they are.
They are very good where they are, as we see. The 1944 Cardinals
right.
did. Julio Teheran is a name you hear from the Braves. move Hendricks to the bullpen. If there's one area where the Cubs aren't great, it's their bullpen. You can say it's because they don't get pitched very often. I think that has something to do with some of the results that they've had. But you're right, you do hear rumors about, a great team getting better, and the starting rotation is one area they could do it. Jason Hammel could go to the bullpen as well, but boy, I agree with you. Hendricks is a pretty underrated pitcher. He doesn't have Jake Arrieta's stuff, but when you watch him pitch and keep hitters off balance, and he doesn't light it up, he doesn't wow you with 80 stuff, but he just gets out.
He is such a good changer. It's so much fun to watch. And look at this. Look at the 5 starting pitchers in the rotation. It's hard to say any of them need to be moved. I think you're right that if there's one thing they could probably use, it's a lefty in the bullpen. Travis Wood has been pretty good, but he's almost more of a longer man. Clayton Richard is the other lefty. He hasn't really been that effective. I think that's why you hear them talking about Andrew Miller. And obviously he's not going to come cheap, and I don't think the Yankees are ready to sell yet. If you add Andrew Miller to this pitching staff that's already arguably the best we've ever seen, that's just not even fair at that point. What does another team do against that?
That's going to be the big debate, I think, for the Cubs as they get closer to August 1st this year is the trade deadline. What's it worth? What is the cost for a reliever? Is it worth giving up a really nice piece? I mean, you hear Kyle Schwarber getting floated, Javier Baez getting floated for a relief on. I don't know even if I'm in go-for-it mode and I want to break the streak and kill the GOAT and the whole deal, I'm not sure I'm willing to give up a really great young player who's going to be part of this for a long time for a reliever.
Yeah, the tough part is most of the teams that are going to be selling, there's a reason they're going to be selling. You're not going to get a reliever from the Reds, right? There's just not anybody there. Now, if the Yankees get in that market, obviously that's a different story. But, the Braves, there's a reliever that you want. A lot of these teams, if they don't have much, and I think it's going to make for a really interesting trading deadline.
Jason Worth draws the walk. He is on with 2 outs. 2 runners on, and that's a while that Gio Gonzalez on a warm night has been out on the base pad, so not really exerting himself. And Worth walks in front of Bryce Harper. Harper flied to left and walked in this contest. Bryce, you were talking about the different ways to spin what has been a quieter run for him in his last 17 games. He's only hitting .267, only with an on-base of .313, and only with a slug of .400, but that's a slump for that man. How about that first pitch changeup as his body spins off the mound?
That's John Lackey right there. He is a true any pitch and any count kind of guy. And this is the second time Harper's come up with first and second. The story from the first series where they were walking Harper incessantly, there's not been opportunities to do it so far, and they're going after him.
Goes right in the same spot with the fastball, but that one's at just under 94 miles an hour. Bryce Harper batting average for balls in play this year, .255. The 3-time All-Star, the Rookie of the Year, the Most Valuable Player Award winner, takes out.
So we're kind of using that Phillies series in late April as a dividing point here. And I think a lot of people said, well, he's just not getting pitched to. And that's partially true. He's getting 47% strikes before that and 41% strikes since. So that's obviously a difference. But he's just not swinging at strikes anymore. He was swinging at 75% of strikes before that and only 58% since. And I think that's why his strikeout percentage is up by so much, because he's not swinging at the good pitches. And whether that means that he's getting pitched around so much that he's not ready for the good ones that come in, I don't know. But it's funny to think about. His issue is be more aggressive, right? Get the good pitches and go after them, because he's still hitting the ball hard. He's still at like a 95-mile-an-hour exit velocity. That's not the issue.
Two and two, the count, 2 outs. Got a fastball, elevated that one, and Harper just stays alive.
And again, you see Lackey adding and subtracting with the fastball. That one was up near 95 miles an hour again, and then you see him go back down into the 93 area.
.75 pitches, turning point in this game, and he takes in. You're not about to let him get his hands extended. Harper's homered 13 times this year, homered 42 times last year. You think about Bryce Harper. And we know about the Arizona Fall League, all the talented players that come through there. He was 17 the first time he played in the Fall League. 17. High school senior age, folks. We'll do it again.
I like the challenging him. Remember the strategy in the last series was just don't pitch to him. Or give him 6 walks in one game. He got, and that's not what's happening now. I think that Lackey is not the kind of guy who's going to pitch around him. He's not afraid to go after him and sort of make Harper prove that he can still crush the ball.
Oh, and by the way, Daniel Murphy looming there. That also is adding to this in this game. He's come out the last 2 times with runners on first and second. Not exactly somewhere to put him, especially when you have a really great hitter coming out next.
Breaking ball, 1 hop to first. Jogging to the bag, and they get Harper in a big-time situation. He had a chance to give his team the lead if he hit it into the bleachers. Oh, man, that was a fun matchup there. The Cespedes Family Barbecue, what a great website it is. They're a great follow on Twitter. The gentlemen are at the yard, and Timmy McMaster had a chance to catch up with him. Tim, of course, is part of our T-Mobile Greater Coverage, and he is our reporter as assigned by T-Mobile and MLB.com. Cespedes Family Barbecue, love those guys. Tim, take it away.
Here at Nationals Park with Jake Mintz and Jordan Schusterman, the guys from Cespedes Family Barbecue, and D3 baseball player, not a D3 baseball player, but a lover of the game. Absolutely. And we're talking draft and guys that have gone late because the draft just happened last week. I'll let you guys get into this, but let's start with Chris Heisey.
Right, so we just talked to Chris Heisey. Chris Heisey, a D3 guy out of Messiah College, a 17th rounder. Pretty crazy getting drafted, that not only that late in the draft, but out of a D3 school. You don't see that happen all the time.
Absolutely, and for a guy like Heisey, there's only 15 to 20 players from D3 drafted every year. Some D1 schools will have 15, 20 guys drafted in one season. Right. So for a guy like Heisey, I mean, it was fantastic to hear from him because it's a super unique story. Only so many even get to the big leagues from D3, so it's an amazing story.
Other guys on the Nats with crazy stories. Clinton Robinson was a 25th rounder, which is pretty impressive, going that late. On the Cubs, Matt Caesar was drafted out of Villanova University, played college football. The Cubs had to give him a couple extra hundreds of thousands of dollars to get him away from the NFL Combine. It's not something you see with every prospect. And then David Ross.
David Ross, I mean, you think about it, this is a guy who's drafted in 1998, shortly after we were born. And it's amazing to think how different the draft process has changed, how did David Ross hear about getting drafted?
Well, I heard that someone from the town over came with a scroll and read it aloud to him and his family at the market.
Right, a little bit different than now where everything's on TV, everyone's tracking online. It's just a totally different world.
Love those guys. They do a really good job. They're a great follow on Twitter. There is a sense of humor that goes along with some good baseball research. Cespedes Family Barbecue. Tim McMaster hanging out with us. He hung out with those guys, our T-Mobile Greater Coverage reporter. Tim, you talk about D3, NAIA junior college. There's also the concept of drafting players that are coming back from serious injuries, like a pitcher with Tommy John. And, a lot of these teams, no stranger to doing that. I mean, we could think about Lucas Giolito as a good example, but it's going on more and more. First-round pick with an elbow yet to recover.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Darren. When you think about teams drafting injured guys like that, and obviously the Tommy John surgery has come a long way to the point where it's really not looked upon that negatively in a young player, but nobody has done a better job of drafting and getting these players ready for the field than the Washington Nationals. You mentioned Giolito. He was back in 2012. He was probably on his way to being the #1 overall pick. He ends up falling to number 16 because of the Tommy John surgery. The Nationals scoop him up there. 2014, Eric Fetty in the conversation for that #1 overall pick. He falls to number 18 because of Tommy John surgery. The Nationals take him there. Right now, Lucas Giolito, the #1 prospect in all of baseball. Fetty's number 70, according to MLBpipeline.com. He's also the Nationals' #4 pick. You go back to Anthony Rendon as well in 2011, the shoulder injury. He was supposed to be the #1 pick. The Nationals got him at number 6. You mentioned this year, Jesus Luzardo. The Nationals got him on day 2 in the 3rd round, 94th overall. He just had Tommy John surgery. He was expected to be at least a first-day guy, if not middle, late first-round type guys. The Nationals are at it again, but they don't just do it because they can get a guy later in the draft. They also do their research. Mike Rizzo said one of the things about Luzardo is how hard he works, his work ethic, also the fact that Dr. James Andrews is the one who performed the surgery on him, so they're confident that it was done right. So a lot goes into this. The Nationals aren't afraid to take an injured player, but they don't just jump right into it. They take their time, they do their research, and we'll see. Giolito's going to be here at some point this season. Said he's probably a couple years away. When you talk about Luzardo, probably a year and a half until he's really pitching and back pitching. And then he's a high school kid, so he's a ways down the road. But the Nationals keep taking these guys with huge upside despite the injuries.
One quick follow-up for you, Tim, and we appreciate it. Love the stuff with the Cespedes Family Barbecue guys, is Giolito. And this is off the subject of injuries and just the need to get him to the big leagues. And with the injury, and we talked about this before the game, to Jonathan Papelbon, that opens up the discussion when you think about Lucas Giolito of maybe letting him break in, despite the fact that he wants to stay a starter, maybe letting him get his feet wet in the big leagues. There's an opening in that bullpen right now. I mean, you can look at it however you want, but this is a big arm, and you have to wonder if maybe that's not going to be discussed a lot in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, you would think, right? And they were actually lucky in a sense. Well, I don't want to say lucky because you lose your closer, but they were going to have to make a decision on Matt Belisle very soon. He was running out of his rehab time in the minors, so this allowed them to at least bring him up so they didn't have to make another decision. But, hey, when you have the #1 prospect in all of baseball sitting down there in Double-A and pitching well, you got to think about it. You mentioned Cespedes Family Barbecue guys. They're buddies with Giolito. He's been on the podcast multiple times. They've hung out with him. So nobody's rooting for Giolito more than Cespedes Family Barbecue.
Thank you, Tim. We appreciate it.
No problem, guys.
Good stuff. A key mobile greater coverage reporter. While that was going on, Ben Zobrist went down on strikes. And you noticed a spin rate that was above 3,000.
3,000. That is really rare to get to, and it tells you a lot about how fast the pitch was spinning. And you saw what it did to Zobrist. No chance.
Wow. Outstanding stuff. Spin rate last time. Getting Javi Baez, getting Gio Gonzalez. Some good stuff with some big spin rates. And that one of Ben Zobrist, 3,000. Goodness. I know you're excited about that.
Extremely excited.
Baez has struck out a couple of times from this one. He's also grounded back to the mound.
Gonzalez has only allowed 2 balls tonight hit at more than 100 miles an hour, and they're both outs. Hayward grounded out at 106, and Rizzo lined out at 102. He's actually done a pretty good job of limiting hard contact, and he hasn't been hurt on the hard contact he's given up. It's really just been a lot of well-placed, softly hit line drives.
One and two, the count. Backs him out of there. A good fastball up and in under the chin of Addison Russell. Well, this year, kind of the old getting more comfortable with the pitcher's stuff and his adjustments. Now we're seeing him strong the third time through. The OPS goes almost to 900 for opposing batters third time through against Gio Gonzalez. That's just not the case this time. Oh, baby, what an inning. His third time through, he just struck out the side. A breaking ball that was more than 3,000 in spin rate there in that inning. And that was an incredible inning to watch. That was fun stuff. Look at that spin rate, 3,000. Just doesn't happen very much. I mean, when you talk about going over 3,000 in the spin rate, and again, we talked about it earlier, a lot of it is perception with the hitter seeing a fastball and seeing it out of the hands, and you don't have the hump or the loop in the breaking ball. Mike, I guess that's why that's important. And, it has to be commanded. The key is he's commanding it the third time through. We talked about it. It goes 506 opponent's OPS, 705, then 886 third time through. He's gotten hit and given up some hits kind of that second time through. It's rare that a pitcher buckles down late, but he's doing it.
He is doing it. And you're absolutely right about the placement of the curveball, because you can have a high spin curveball, but if you start it high, all that means is it's going to drop into the hitting zone. So it's all about command and placement and spin rate. So he starts it low and then it drops even lower. but enough so that the hitter still thinks he's got a chance to go after it. So that was a really impressive pitch.
Let's take a look at our MLB Plus in-game fast cast. What else is going on around Major League Baseball? It's time to take that journey right now. Phillies in Toronto taking on the Blue Jays, lead at 5-0 in the third, and Josh Donaldson against Zach Eflin, and the bases are loaded. That's a grand slam, number 15 on the year. 9-0, they would win. 11-3, Baltimore at Boston. The O's taking on the Sox. No score in the first. Manny Machado, David Price meet one another. 17 home runs for Manny. The O's have a 2-0 lead, and they still lead at this point by that score. Cincy at Atlanta, the Reds and the Braves. No score in the first. Jay Bruce, good to see him getting it going. Julio Teheran, 3-run homer to right center field. That puts them up 3-0. They now lead it by a score of 3-1. Seattle and Tampa Bay, 2-0 M's. Jonas Martin against Jake Odorizzi, and it's a 2-run double to right center field. Iannetta, Aoki, come on down. The Mariners up 4-0. They're currently holding on to a 5-4 lead in that one. And finally, Pittsburgh at New York. Jameson Taillon has been outstanding. Jacob deGrom striking out Jordy Mercer as well in this one. They've both been really strong. Pirates now lead it 2-0. And in the moment, Taillon has not given up a hit. Is that still the case?
68 pitches through 6 innings, and he's given up 0 hits so far. And now you see from the graphic, it's just about impossible to throw a no-hitter in your first or second career thought. I know we all remember Bobo Hall, the immortal Bobo. It's not going to happen, right? Can we go out on a limb here and say it's not going to happen, either pitch counts or a hit? But it's an amazing second start for Taillon.
So keep an eye on that, certainly. You folks keep an eye on that. Open up another window and see what's going on there. Track the game.
And on the same day, Garrett Cole goes on the disabled list. So a little boost for the Pirates, who have been watching the Cubs win all these ball games and trying to stay in it here in mid-June. This would be a heck of a lift.
Daniel Murphy leads it off. The Nationals had a big chance an inning ago. They had Bryce Harper hitting. There were 2 outs, but there were a couple of runners on. And Bryce Harper grounded out firmly to first. Breaking ball, it was on a pitch like that one. That's a 12-6, straight down breaking curveball with about 79 miles an hour. And Murphy does that for the second time tonight. Sitting on the breaking ball, it's like he's sitting on it, he's getting it, but it's a good one.
I don't know if we've talked enough about how amazing Murphy has been over the last.
No, I know, we haven't, you're right.
But you're right, no. Lackey has been absolutely incredible tonight, and I think, you've talked about it, his velocity has not gone down. I think this is his 400th career start, not including playoffs. And he's more or less the same velocity he was 15 years ago. You just don't see that anymore.
No, usually you see a pitcher like him, a bulldog type, and they'll have to change the way they pitch. I'm thinking of one of his old Angels teammates, Francisco Rodriguez. He was all gas, obviously different style pitcher than Lackey, but as the velocity came down, he had to reinvent himself as a changeup guy. Lackey has been very fortunate that he's basically, he's changed. His percentage of pitches, he's changed. Every pitcher is going to evolve over the years, but he still has that almost identical fastball velocity.
He has a funny way of going about beating the best hitters in the lineup, too. It's not that he really lets down against the guys that aren't, but it's just straight old batting average, folks, on this one. But leadoff hitters this year, 206 against Lackey. Number 2 hitters, 212. 3 and 4 hitters each, 182 against John Lackey. And we could add some additional numbers, but I'm sure there's not a ton of walks there, and I'm sure there's not a ton of homers that bump up the slug. That's pretty fun. I mean, the top of the order in every team that he faces, he's dominated. One and two. Spoiled a pitch away. T-Mobile greater coverage cam from behind home plate. That's a great perspective, and the arm angles of Lackey are fun to watch from back here. You certainly see pitch location from center field, but it's fun to see Lackey from behind home plate.
Yeah, even here in the 6th inning, 85 pitches, he's still throwing 92, 93 miles an hour. Maybe not quite the 94.5 we saw in the first inning, but he's keeping that up deep into the game.
Since May the 1st, opponents hitting 171 against John. There it is, a slower, firm breaking ball there. Good, hard pitch, downward break. Well, we got a spin rate city tonight, folks. He thought he swung at a pitch with his belt. Obviously, the key is making it look like a fastball out of the hands. What do you got over there, Mike?
I have sad news for you. The no-hitter in New York is no more. Curtis Grinderson got a hit, and you don't have to worry about whether Tyan's going to be allowed to go all the way.
Okay, so Mike with that update. One and 0 the count. What do we got on the spin rate of that pitch to Zimmerman? That's a pretty good one over the outside corner to Rendon.
Still waiting on that one.
Okay.
But I do have something for you on Gonzalez's spin rate. He has 2 pitches tonight over 3,000 RPM. His only 2 pitches of the StatCast era that he has thrown with that much spin. And across baseball, when you have a curveball that goes over 3,000 RPM, batters hit 156 on it. Because it's moving so much, it's really hard to square it up.
Guys, I think this is one of the areas where StatCast is getting into the clubhouses as well. It's another tool, I think, that pitchers, when things aren't going well, that they can look at to see, maybe help explain why things aren't going well. You hear guys more and more talk about looking at that data.
I'll tell you why it didn't go well for Rendon, because he was looking for a breaking ball. Instead, he got a crossfire sidearm fastball. That didn't taste good at all. Yuck. And Lackey just spectacular tonight through 6. His left fielder, Chris Bryant, obviously is constantly adjusting, even as a very, very young player. And our own Lindsey Berra had a chance to catch up with Mr. Bryant to talk about the adjustments he makes offensively and defensively.
You know, but there's certain patterns that are good for us to kind of see, like, you know, certain, like 2 strikes where this guy's throwing his fastball and where he's throwing his off speed. Is it down in the zone or is it up in the zone? So that kind of thing is very, you know, helpful. But
what about from a defensive positioning perspective?
Yeah, I think that's kind of where the game's kind of moving in terms of the shifts and stuff. I think that's perfect. I think it's important to use that data to our advantage. You know, as much as we hate it as hitters, we're hitting the ball into the shift. It's smart on their end to, you know, put their defense into positions where they think we're going to hit it. And you know, I know it's helped us out a lot.
Thank you for watching MLB Plus. I'm Ashley Chavez, and welcome back. Today, so I've been scouring around. If you don't know, I'm looking for your tweets. I want to put them on here so we could talk about it, and I found some good ones. I've seen a lot on both sides, some nervous, some happy, a couple about scared baseball, about a certain intentional walk. But beyond that, let's talk about Gio, since that's the most important thing right now. I feel like we're all talking about it, including Twitter. Joey Morgan tweets, curveball on point for Gio, MLB Plus providing spin rate / perceived velocity as the game goes along, making this great pitching fascinating. Couldn't agree more, and we can't stop talking about it. Next might be my favorite of the night from 81 games. Grandpa Rossi up the middle, #ASG worthy, #Cubs, #old guys who rake. Love it. And lastly, from Dave Janeski, sorry if I messed that one up, at MLB Plus, stats can be fun. Give us some stats on long hair Gio versus short hair Gio. Mike, I'm going to let you handle that one. Let you stew over it.
I have absolutely no idea what the hair length is. We do not measure hair length, but I think that's going to be on the next version of StatCast.
The Sheriff with a good one there. That's a really good one. Thank you, Sheriff. David Ross, #old guys rake digs in.
There was another highlight of spring training, Darren. The Cubs bought him a rascal.
One of those little small
scooters.
get-about scooters.
Scooter, yeah.
Disposable income. A little lower arm angle just to pour it right in there. 2-1 to count. Life gets better in your 40s. Mr. Ross will see that, the perspective even more. He's had a wonderful career. Boy, what a great living he has made. This is a guy that has made more than $20 million as a backup catcher and has been coveted by teams. And it's been the Dodgers and the Pirates, San Diego, Cincinnati, it's Boston, it's Atlanta, back to Boston and the Cubs.
He had a really good run with Atlanta for 4 years with 2009 to 2012. 353 on base percentage, 463 slugging. For a backup catcher, it's really impressive.
He's thrown out 188 opposing base stealers in his career. He's done it at a clip of close to 40%, with league average being about 25 to 30.
And a lot of those starts, Darren, with John Lester on the mound, which doesn't help a catcher.
No.
His issues holding runners are well documented, and yet Ross has put up those numbers.
That's a fading breaking ball. That's a fatigued pitcher. Arm well under that pitch. Mike Maddox is the pitching coach for Dusty Baker. They're, I'm sure, having a discussion in the dugout right now. Ross is at first. There's some action in the Nationals bullpen. Lackey gets down a pretty good one. A ho-hum lalab to first. John Lackey with his third successful sac bunt of the year.
The Cubs don't bunt much, and it's probably because they haven't had to, because they're scoring 600 runs a game.
Yeah, what's the point in giving up outs when you can just go out there and crush pretty much from 1 to 9? But you know, if you're going to bunt with John Lackey in the 7th inning, I think that's the kind of bunt I can get behind.
Gio Gonzalez is done. He leaves trailing. There were certainly some good things to see. I mean, he really did. With regard to StatCast, some spectacular things. 3 runs were all his. He walks 4, and he regrets those, certainly, the walks. Because one of those walks coming around to score, that have been Zobrist from the 4th inning. Mike, you did some pretty spectacular things with regard to moving the needle on the numbers and with the data, didn't he?
Yeah, Gonzalez was really impressive. We said that the 2 curveballs at top 3,000 are his best 2 of the StatCast era. And I think when we go back and look at his curve tonight, it might have been his best curve of the season. He got a lot of nice strikeouts on that. And, you know, the fact that he's down by 3 or down 3-1, he didn't really get hit hard, you know? He had a couple of balls hit over 100 that turned into outs. Really just well placed, and that's how the Cubs work. And the Cubs can beat you in so many different ways. It doesn't have to be home runs.
And it's a pitcher, Darren, who hadn't been throwing the ball particularly well. His last outing, he was burned by that first inning, then he was okay. But the starts before that, you know, you're talking 5 earned runs, 6 earned runs, 7 earned runs in the 3 previous outings. So, you know, great stuff and a very respectable outing to go into the 7th inning against the Cubs offense and all that we've talked, the big numbers they've put up. That's certainly their work.
And so he's got a veteran, a one-time, pretty successful, talented young starting pitcher who evolved and started to struggle and metamorphosized into a very successful left-handed relief pitcher. His first 206 games, Oliver Perez was the starting pitcher to the tune of a 4.63 ERA. Coming out of the pen and the time that has followed, he has been a very successful 256 games, a relief pitcher. 3.3 ERA and a whip much lower than that he had as a starter.
198 innings since leaving the Mets 5 years ago, 244 strikeouts. Really, his slider has become his primary pitch. He has a 4-seamer and a sinker, but it's really the slider. When he gets ahead and he gets some pitcher's count, that's what he's going to try to hit away.
Dexter Fowler hitting. It was Dexter Fowler running earlier, showing off those wheels. Our StatCast powered by Amazon Web Services replay. As he gets nearly to 21 miles an hour and gets home in 7.2 seconds.
It is kind of interesting to bring in a lefty here against the righty Fowler.
But he's been really good at stranding runners. He didn't allow an inherited runner until, just a couple of days ago, June 8th. He stranded 15 runners to start his season.
Obviously, Fowler is a switch hitter, but I think more effective from this side. So.
Yep. Yeah, hitting .313, .395, .507, triple slash against lefties this year. You're exactly right. At a base open, you've got 1 out. Pretty good pitch. Just up above the belt, I'm guessing, for Dexter Fowler. In his career, The luck has smiled on him a bit. A .342 career batting average for balls in play. He takes high, 3-1 the count.
And the Nets bullpen overall has actually been pretty good this year. 5th best ERA amongst bullpens. Now, obviously, they don't have Papelbon any longer, but you know, Perez and Kelly both pitched last night, so they've added Belisle. They have a bunch of pitchers who haven't gone over the last couple of days, so they should be pretty well rested for this.
Saw Fowler a moment ago run his count to 3-1. He's a patient hitter. We know that. We have for a long time. He's gotten to 3-1 this year 15% of the time. Dramatically above league average. You're looking at almost 2 out of every 10 plate appearances. He's at a 3-1 count. No wonder he's had a good year. There you see the work that the bullpens have done, and this is to Mike's point.
It's always the Royals, isn't it? Always the Royals. But the Orioles, I think, are super underrated, and the Nationals up there. I really like what they did this offseason, getting Kelly, adding Perez.
That slider in the back of the mind, isn't it? I mean, when you have that slider in the back of the mind, and that's giddy up. That was 93 miles an hour, but when you maybe are looking for a back foot slider, you've got no shot at this pitch.
It was a good pitch, but it was essentially right down the middle. You know, he wasn't really trying to fool Fowler. He was just trying to blow him away. Kind of hard to do with a 92-mile-an-hour fastball, but worked for him there.
That's where I think pitch selection and setting up pitches go off the grid with regard to how we actually judge their effectiveness. I think sometimes the pitch before is just as important as the pitch that follows it. And that's the pitch he was looking for. He was looking for a pitch like that one. A slider down and in off his back foot. 0-1 the count to Jason Hayward. Really looks uncomfortable, doesn't it? I mean, my goodness.
Those are 2 nice pitches right there, right? That first pitch that's out of the zone that Hayward goes after. The second one, that slider at the bottom of the zone that he watches. All of a sudden, he's down 0-2. You're right, Hayward doesn't look comfortable at all, but, you know, Ali Perez is making some really impressive pitches.
And you can throw that pitch for a strike. That's really impressive. A lot of guys can throw a slider like that, but when you can throw it for a strike, that's a veteran pitcher.
Just in case, took a whack at it. A fastball that was up and away, spoiled again when he was thinking about a breaking ball. Mom and Dad. When you talk about Father's Day coming up, Eugene is dad of Jason Hayward, a Dartmouth grad, but then so is Mom. Both Dartmouth alumni, and we mentioned Hayward was on his way to UCLA if his professional contract wasn't inked. Stayed back as long as he could, but what can you do with a pitch like that that breaks from one dugout to the other? Well, bullpens are in play now, and for Washington, certainly in play, and for Washington, some big decisions. We talked about it before the game. 15-day disabled list for the first time. He has had some time where he has sat down, but for the first time, Jonathan Papelbon with a rib cage injury, intercostal injury, goes on the DL before the game. Dusty Baker enlightening all of us, including the media in attendance, on how they came about this decision regarding Jonathan Papelbon.
Well, he hurt himself warming up. He said he felt it when he was warming up 2 days ago to come in the game. And but, you know, guys are always stretching and stuff, and then I had my eyes on him, and a couple other guys had some eyes on him when he was really stretching in the dugout after the top of the 9th. And then, you know, you didn't think anything of it, but then when he came in the next day all crooked and he couldn't straighten out, you know something was wrong. It's 15 days, you know, I mean, no matter what. And we'd rather catch it now than let it get, than if it got worse.
And Adam, we have noticed this change in Jonathan Papelbon the last 2 years as well.
Yeah, he's just not striking out hitters like he used to, Darren. And whether that is stuff, whether it is he's lost the ability to blow away hitters the way he did when he was younger and had a little less mileage on that arm. And you see what it's done to his ERA. He's just not been the same lights-out type automatic closer, and it sort of reinforces the danger of giving these big long-term deals to closers. It's why a lot of teams really try not to do it.
Jamal Collier standing by at the ballpark. So obviously some thought goes into this decision, Jamal, and Dusty made it clear we just hope he gets some rest. He'll be better than a brand new player that we acquired, and that's optimism. That's why we love listening to Dusty Baker, but there may be some reason to combine the optimism with reality, correct?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you guys alluded to it. Papelbon doesn't miss a whole lot of bats anymore. And when you're coming into a ninth inning in a close game in that kind of environment, you're kind of hoping they hit the ball right at somebody, or you kind of force them into contact. And it's why every save has been an adventure right now for Papelbon, and why his kind of job, his hold on the closer job was kind of tenuous anyway before this injury kind of happened. And now you're in a position where you're not sure how long this will happen, or this will last, how long this will linger. And the Nationals may have been already seeking bullpen help at the deadline. And now certainly you would think that they're going to be very much in the market to try to add something to their bullpen.
Hey, Jamal, it's Mike. This, in one way, solves a little bit of a problem that they had because they had to find room for Matt Belisle. And I think it sounded like they were going to have to send down Sammy Solis, who's actually been very good for them. So, one problem solved. Do you think that they are going to be able to just kind of push everybody up and get Belisle back in there, or is this going to be an issue where they're really thin now?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good point. That they kind of have been lingering to what to do with Matt Belisle because, for him, he wouldn't have probably accepted a minor league assignment, so they would have had to DFA him if they decided they wanted to keep Solis. And he had been so good that they didn't want to necessarily get rid of him and send him back to the minors either. And there was no very clear candidate in their bullpen that they didn't see the way they fit. So Matt Belisle comes in as a guy who should have some fresh innings in his arm and be able to really help them. And really they've stretched him out in the minor leagues during his rehab assignment, allowing him to throw 2 innings sometimes, going back-to-back. So possibly he can be kind of play a lot of different roles here in his bullpen going forward.
One final question for you as there's a base runner now for the Nationals. We see that a moment ago. Pitch that came in a little tight and got him right in the hip. So Espinosa is on. And the question's about Sean Kelly. This opens up an opportunity for a guy who kind of had to fight his way through college, had to fight his way to professional baseball. At one point, beat David Price in a fun, legendary matchup. This is a guy that gets a big opportunity now. I know Mike's excited about it. He's had his pom-poms out all night long because he's been cheering for him to get a chance. This is a great chance for a talented pitcher who's worked hard to get here.
Yeah, and really, Dusty kind of pointed to it earlier before the game. And this guy's also had 2 Tommy John surgeries. Had one in high school and then one, as he started his career in pro ball. And he's a guy who's been really the Nats' best reliever in a lot of aspects, as a matter of fact, this season. You would assume that he's going to be the guy that they're going to give the eventual role to by the end of the season, or by the end of this trip. They said they're going to use a closer by committee at this point, but I would assume that it's Kelly's job to lose at this point, that he's going to get a lot of the confidence in Dusty Baker and in this staff because they trust him to be able to do some things and be able to last and close out these games for him.
Jamal, it's Adam. Tell me what this does to the spots ahead of Sean Kelly, because you move a guy into the closer's role, and there's obviously a domino effect. So they have Blake Trinan, who's been effective. And what does it do to the 7th and 8th inning? And do you think that eventually this just pushes them to bring Lucas Giolito up to get another big arm for those some late innings?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think for now, what it's going to do is force them to really start matching up. And we talk about the 7th and the 8th inning because they got a guy in Felipe Rivero who they like a lot, and they think he has probably the best stuff of anybody in this bullpen. But right now, he struggled to get lefties out, and that's weird because last year, as he is a left-hander, and he was getting lefties out really effectively last year, it's kind of completely 180 that is dominating righties and not getting lefties out. So he's a guy you probably can't just pitch for an entire inning right now. Where you do have guys like Oliver Perez and Sammy Solis pitching so well. So you might see them use Trinan and Rivero and some of those guys to try to match up and figure things out in the 8th or 7th inning to get to Kelly. And depending on how much this lingers or depending on how much or who they can get in here before the deadline, possibly we'll see the fact that they'll have to bring Giolito up and have him to ask for his bullpen.
Thank you, Jamal. Good things going on down on the diamond. Good stuff. We appreciate you joining us. Jamal Collier with his insights on the bullpen. Meantime, Jose Lobaton's having all kinds of fun down there. Lobaton is Now 2 for 3. Espinosa, who was hit by a pitch, and all of a sudden, folks, there's some noise at the ballpark with the folks wearing red.
Lopatone, you get anything out of his bat, and that's it. That is gravy, because he's in there because he's a really good framer. Right? That's why he exists. He's an excellent pitch framer. You can take a walk, almost a 10% walk rate, which is pretty good, but he's just never been much of a hitter. 222 career average, 319 career slugging. 2 hits tonight, 2 big hits. I mean, that is absolutely the best you can hope for from your backup pitcher.
He pulled it, took a hop right over the bag. Those high socks, he took off a running. And so Lobotone, he had a 2 for 3 game back in April at Minnesota. That's been the only game that's resembled him. Joe Ross comes in for some speed, representing the tying run to run for Lobotone. So,
and to Mike's point, Darren, the backup catcher role is something that people parse. I think everybody wants Buster Posey to be the backup catcher, and you think it should be a guy who can come off the bench and rake. That's not what teams want in that position. They want a framer. They want a guy who can handle the pitcher when you need to give your regular guy a day off. But the Nationals are one team that have been looked at as a potential suitor for a catcher as we get toward the trade deadline. Jonathan Lucroy's name has come up with them all the way back into spring training. I know Ramos has been really good as a regular catcher, maybe surprisingly good at the plate, at least for them, and that's kind of quieted that down a little bit.
Well, speaking of Wilson Ramos, you don't see him yet. You see the crowd cheering and getting excited. Lackey waiting for someone to come to hit. Dusty Baker very deliberate. There will be a double switch involved, obviously, and some shakeup going on, but here is Ramos.
Joe Ross is pinch running.
Yes.
Joe Ross, the pitcher,
yes,
pinch running. This isn't the 14th inning. They have 5 guys on their bench. They have 2 outfielders, Chris Heisey, Michael Taylor, Stephen Drew, a backup infielder. Obviously, it wouldn't be Ramos, probably wouldn't be Clinton Robinson. It's fascinating to me that the pitcher is the first guy off the bench to pinch run here.
And Joe Ross, as you mentioned, a good athlete, a very good athlete, all-around athlete, hitting 200, has scored a couple of runs this year. But you're right, that was the decision that was made. Ross coming out, putting athleticism, trying to save the rest of his bench, and that is it for John Lackey. John Lackey, spectacular tonight. 6 innings at this point, plus 4 hits, 1 run earned, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts, just shy of 100 pitches. And an opportunity now to pinch hit for Wilson Ramos, who is this year one of the great stories, very quietly one of the great stories for guys that are having offensive production that are really contributing to their team. You wouldn't think of his name first, but you should.
He has been the best hitting catcher in baseball this year, the best. And it's interesting because he was arguably the worst hitting catcher in baseball the last 2 years, either him or Mike Zunino. But now Ramos has been incredible. His slugging is up from 358 to 548. That's almost 200 percentage points. And you can see here, don't ask me about Chris Herman because I have absolutely no idea. Jonathan Lucroy, obviously, as Adam you see every day, has really made a good bounce back. And Sal Perez with a good year. But Wilson Ramos is up there by a lot. And I think what's interesting is because he had LASIK surgery this offseason, and I don't want to put too much into that one thing, even though I've had it and I'm a huge proponent of it. He says he can see better, and let me tell you, against fastballs, 95 miles an hour or more. Last year he hit 230, this year he's hitting 333. I think if a guy can see the ball better, that certainly makes a lot of sense, and he's been a huge star for the Nationals this year.
It was an interesting night also in New York. Jameson Tyon on the hill for a second career start, replacing the injured Garrett Cole, cruising in the 2nd inning. After he gets loose, and it's his 2nd time in the big leagues, Yoenis Cespedes is the first out of the 2nd inning. Look at the life on that fastball. Alejandro de Atza swinging to end the 3rd. Through 3, hasn't given up a hit. 5th inning, Kevin Plawecki goes down to end the 5th. 5 innings, a no-hitter. Jacob deGrom pitching a good game as well. Jung-Ho Kong takes him deep. The Pirates up 2-0. That's his 9th home run of the year. Then in the bottom of the 7th inning, still with the no-hitter, Curtis Granderson against the shift. Breaks it up a single to right field. He breaks it up the no-hitter for the talented young arm in his 2nd Major League start. It is over the pitch. You can see a secondary pitch at 80 miles an hour. The extension cuts himself short, so a recoil-style pitcher. And Curtis Granderson, just a ball with eyes. And that was Alice in Wonderland. Right into the rabbit hole it went, and it broke it up.
At 93 miles an hour, but it's all about placement. And that's the thing, is no hitters, you have pitcher, you have to be a great pitcher on a good night, but you have to get lucky. You have to get real lucky. And that ball goes 2 feet in either direction, that's an out, and maybe we're still talking about this no-hitter.
Now, though, we're talking about a great hitter, especially this year, who sees a lot better. And A talented right arm coming on and a firm delivery, too, with good stuff. Strop takes over. Pedro, 31 years old. Last year, struck out 71 and 61. This year, strikeout rate's even up. Nearly 4 out of every 10 end up with a strikeout.
Pedro Strop, 186 innings for the Cubs, 227 strikeouts. I think people kind of forget about him when they think about that Arrieta trade, because that's where they got him from Baltimore in that same trade. And yeah, Arrieta's become amazing. Don't forget about Pedro Strop. He's a really underrated part of that trade, and he's a big part of why that was such a heist.
He's a pitcher I've heard from hitters before. You want to wait him out early in these situations because he can come out for some outings and just have no feel for the plate at all, no feel for the strike zone. So I think he's a guy that you want to take a couple pitches until you end up 0-2, and now you've got a nasty pitcher and you're down.
Here comes the slider.
Oh, baby, the slider, and he waves right over the top of it. Occasionally will throw a split, but that is the big secondary pitch. Pedro with a huge strikeout there.
Yeah, he throws that slider more than 50% of the time when he gets to 2 strikes. I mean, that is his out pitch, and it's exactly what's wrong. Look at that thing dive. You have to lay off of that. There's no way you're going to contact that and make eye contact.
All right, Ben Revere, those RBIs are out there in front of you. Pedro Strop with a right arm that can do damage to either side. Lefties this year are hitting .087 against him. It's a tough pitch to deal with. You know, you think about why you see that slider. That does not discriminate. It's mean to both right-handed hitters and left-handed hitters with a straight-down break.
And if you're sitting on that, well, he's got the fastball that's like 95.5 miles an hour, so you can't let that go past. He's a really, I think, unbelievably underrated pitcher just because he doesn't get any saves. He's not a ninth-inning guy.
Pulls a fastball in there, 96 miles an hour.
His first outing since June 8th. We're not talking about a guy being off for 2 weeks and coming in there, but that is a bit of a layoff, and it kind of illustrates, I think, one of the problems maybe you could attribute the Cubs' average bullpen is just lack of use. They're not getting as regular use as other teams.
Breaking ball, fly ball. He threw him one and left him one up, and that'll play to run. That makes it a one-run game. He left a breaking ball up, guys. And because of that, you've got to give credit to Ben Revere. You see it high, you've got to let it fly, and he did.
He gets the job done there. I don't think we're going to see a huge exit velocity on that, but that's not really the point there. Get the ball in the air.
Only deep enough, no big decisions to be made out there about that. So Ben Revere with a single, but that's his opportunity of the night right there. And now, as we mentioned earlier, the pitcher, Joe Ross, the athletic pitcher out there running, he's at second base. Here's with the base open, Jason Worth, who's really hot, but you've got Bryce Harper on deck. With runners on base, Strop has an opponent's batting average of 188. That's 97 with sink.
It's what I say, 97 with good movement. I mean, that's, as I've often said, I don't know how anybody hits anybody. And that is, he is a good reliever, but he's not, I wouldn't say, an elite reliever. 97 with sink, and then he's going to come back with that slider.
And the issue again with him, it's just being able to consistently throw strikes. You saw that fastball low and away right on the corner. He's just been a guy who's not able to hit the black like that in some of his outings. I mean, sometimes he'll come out and be lights out.
It's unfair.
And a turn and a pause with a tribute to Louis Tion. He lifted that leg and paused in the air, literally came still before firing that slider to Jason Worth. But don't forget about what Ben Revere did. Do not forget about it. The way Revere handled that fly ball to left field. We've had a lot of fun breaking down exit velocities and route efficiency and spin rate tonight. That's just a little part of it. So again, if you're just joining us and you've logged on, our introduction to you late in this ball game as to what exactly is StatCast.
Several years of research and development were realized in 2014 with the debut of MLB.com's StatCast, the first ever reliable measurement of every play on a baseball field. Pioneered by MLB Advanced Media and debuted with prototypes at the 2014 All-Star Game, League Championship Series, and World Series, StatCast's roots can be traced back roughly a decade earlier to MLBAM's introduction of pitch tracking. Pitch tracking delivered a never-before-seen wealth of detailed information regarding every pitch thrown in the major leagues. Though a bold move at the time, today, pitch tracking technology is ubiquitous throughout broadcast television and baseball's digital products. But despite the data compiled on pitching, never before have there been reliable defensive statistics. The goal with StatCast was to leverage the technology to ensure that defense could be quantified and that a more complete picture of our game be made available to fans. To that end, all 30 ballparks have been outfitted with 2 distinctly different but collaborative technologies to allow for the data capture, optical tracking, and radar tracking. High-definition video camera arrays spaced 15 meters apart to capture stereoscopic video, and a 3D Doppler radar system which captures 2,000 samples per second of the entire baseball field. By marrying the data from each of these systems, it is now possible to scientifically quantify the skills and talents of players on the field using new player performance metrics.
Wonderful way to enjoy a baseball game. Dare we say a modern way to enjoy it. MLB.com and advanced media and so many advanced metrics. It's not that advanced as Sammy Solis comes on for the 16th time this year. We'll show you Sammy in just a moment. There's that one. It's a fly ball to center field. Chris Bryant stayed back as long as he could. There's obviously advanced ways to vote now, and Tim McMaster joins us. Tim, part of our T-Mobile staff, T-Mobile Greater Coverage reporter tonight. So, Tim, we know technology allows us to vote for the All-Star team, and you're looking out on the field tonight. Just about everybody who is on the last updated leaderboard is out there playing right there in front of you. It's crazy what's going on with the voting. It's kind of fun as we'll unveil a new look with regard to tomorrow's voting, Tim.
Yeah, this is pretty much your National League All-Star team for the most part. But when you look at it, I think we've seen this before, right? A great baseball fan base that suddenly has a great team to root for and goes crazy when it comes to voting. It happened with the Royals a couple of years ago where they had all those starters in the All-Star game, and it's happening to the Cubs this season because when you look at the breakdown, your All-Star infield, if the voting ended right now, is your Chicago Cubs infield. Anthony Rizzo at first, Ben Zobrist at second, Addison Russell at short, Chris Bryant at third. All of those guys other than Addison Russell actually have huge leads right now. Russell just kind of edging out his way among the votes. But when you think about who could be in there, Ben Zobrist leading the way over Daniel Murphy. Maybe the Nationals fans need to get going in the voting. But then in the outfield, you have Fowler in center field along with a Met and a National, Bryce Harper out in right, Cespedes in left. But the fourth place guy, as far as outfielders go, is Jason Hayward. They have another Cub there. And then another spot that's fascinating, guys, is at catcher. Because when you think catchers in the National League, let's be honest, you really think of 2 guys, Yadier Molina and Buster Posey. And Molina's leading the way, Posey's second, but Wilson Ramos is having an unbelievable year. He's fourth because Miguel Montero of the Cubs is third. So there's Cubs everywhere. There's a long way to go before the All-Star game, but right now it's going to have a very north side feel in San Diego.
Does that surprise you, though? I mean, you think about it with the way that everyone here at MLB Advanced Media has made the game global and done their best to make voting available to everyone. You know, you're going to have a lot of players that are very, very popular, and they're coming in on winning teams. And in a way, it's winners. The fans aren't getting it wrong, maybe just a little bit with Addison Russell. Zobrist just in there safe with a double at second. But the way things have gone, you know, the popularity of Kansas City, by the way, the American League's really getting it right with the voting now. But it's fun to see how the winning teams are getting recognized, huh?
Yeah, and especially the teams that are maybe new to winning. Because, you know, those fans are really locked in. But in general, absolutely. I mean, who's paying the most attention to the baseball season? It's the fans that have good teams. So you're certainly going to be represented in that way. And let's be honest, that's the way it should be. I mean, yes, the best players should be at the All-Star team. But if it comes down to a tiebreaker, you want the guys on the good team.
Tim, I have to say the fans actually are doing a pretty decent job there. I think most of those guys, can't really have too much argument with. What about shortstop? Addison Russell's actually kind of had a tough year. There's a lot of good shortstops in the NL. You got Seager and Crawford and Story. Aledmus Diaz has been incredible in St. Louis. Do you think that is that going to keep up, or is he going to get overtaken as time goes on?
Well, it's funny because he's the one who has the least lead, but you know who's right behind him in the voting? It's none of those guys you just said, Mike. It's actually Trevor Story of the Rockies, and then there's a big drop-off to Brandon Crawford of the Giants. So the shortstop's really interesting. That also, as far as a position, has the least amount of total votes, or the most spread out. So I think that's the spot you will see a change, but I don't know if those guys are going to overtake Russell. They have a long way to go. Trevor Story's right there, but you would wonder if he's going to have the push from Colorado fans, because as we were just saying, the Rockies not having as good a season as some of these other teams. So shortstop definitely fascinating. To me, shortstop's fascinating in second bases, because Ben Zobrist is a great member of the Cubs team. But when you see what Daniel Murphy has done so far this season, you feel like he should be and has to be the guy, right?
Yeah, I think so. We're going to let you go. You got to go vote. We're letting you go. Get to voting. Come on. Thanks, you, Tim.
Guys.
We appreciate it. We'll see you in the post game. Our T-Mobile Greater Coverage reporter, Tim McMaster. We are thrilled with his efforts around the ball yard. Solis is on. A couple of quick outs before Ben Zobrist with a double. And looking to add on in front of Javi Baez, T-Mobile's Greater Coverage camera from up above. Some of the higher seating in Washington. Fastball buried in. Boy, is this a gifted left arm, huh? Young man out of the west side of Arizona in Litchfield Park, just outside of Phoenix.
Yeah, so I think he's older than people think he is. He's already nearly 28 years old. He had Tommy John surgery in 2012, and he was a second-round pick a few years before that. It's actually been really impressive this year. Gave up a home run to the fourth hitter he faced this year, Carlos Ruiz, and hasn't given up one since. 15 outings, 13 of them scoreless. Watch out for the curve. The curve is his huge strikeout pitch. Gets strikes on it nearly 25% of the time.
You called it. There it was. Watch out for the curve. If you just could have said it a little more spot on, you'd be better off. That was the curveball from Solis. Baez has struck out 3 times. In the past, he's no stranger to strikeouts. He's making a little more contact of late. And that was an impressive inning. That's the kind of inning you want out of your bullpen when you just scored a run to keep the momentum going.
Yeah, look at this pitch right here. That's the curveball we talked about. Baez, a totally lost on that. This is a good Nationals bullpen. I think they don't really get the credit for that, and they're going to have to try to cover a little bit with Papelbon out, but there's a lot of talent down there.
This game just it reflects what's happening around baseball. It's 95 everywhere.
Right.
Everybody is throwing so hard. Being a hitter in the late innings right now is no fun.
No fun at all. All right, Mike, let's get your StatCast hat on. It's time for our StatCast in-game look back, powered by our good friends with Amazon Web Services. We start with the Bryant diving catch.
Look at that, 96% route efficiency, and that's really impressive. It means he's almost a perfect route to the ball. And as you see, Baez here, look at this pitch. This pitch just drops and dives. There's no chance against that.
John Lackey with the base hit up the middle. StatCast of that. Exit velocity of 94.1 for a pitcher.
That's really good for a pitcher.
Dexter Fowler, the speed.
Yeah, 20 miles an hour. You look at the best guys in baseball, they top out at 21, 22. I don't think you think about Dexter Fowler as being that speedy, but he really is. He can get up there.
Rizzo, the breaking ball, spin rate.
I love the trail there. That's so much fun to watch.
And then Lackey getting Zim.
That is a nice fastball, and Zimmerman did not buy it. That was one where he set him up with all those pitches low and outside. And then look at this from Revere. Really nice play to go out there and get that ball.
Animate the first step. Less than a second, a little more than a half second. Getting Rendon. Look at the arm angle on this one. Crossfire there, and Rendon knew it. Lobaton, StatCasting his big hit. He's had 2 hits tonight. Placement there, exit velocity under 90 miles an hour. Great placement with that one. Good speed first to third on Lobaton hit, by the way. For Espinosa. Espinosa tagging, strong. This is max speed. Here's a look back at our StatCast tonight as we take a look from our T-Mobile Greater Coverage cam. Cubs fans enjoying so far what they're seeing. So who are the left-handed specialists? Well, not really. A converted starting pitcher is the first option for the Cubs when they go to their pen, and Travis Wood answers the bell for the 30th time this year, an ERA of 2.25. An opponent's hitting below 200 against him. This is a one-time, long-time starting pitcher and a pretty good one in moments. But he, much like Trevor Cahill, Adam, both of those guys have found a role in Joe Madden's watch as relievers.
Yeah, and Wood has been the most used guy, 29. This is his 30th outing. He's interesting so far as a reverse split guy, and I think it illustrates the Cubs don't have a lefty specialist. It's why that's probably an area that they'll look at as we come up on August 1st. If you're a great team, it's sort of one of the luxuries you can go out and get. But so far, lefties, 681 OPS against him. He's been better against righties, 520 OPS. But he has been one of Joe Madden's go-to guys, pitching more than anyone else in this pen, which, as we said, is a luxury too. They have not used their bullpen a lot. 160 in the third innings coming into this game was fewest in Major League Baseball.
Well, the Cubs have a few guys in their pen, Travis Wood included, who came up as starters and have been converted to relievers. And we see that a lot. Guys go down to the bullpen. They don't have to go deep into the game. They can kind of air it out, and they become successful. But what I think is really interesting is there's a lot of different reasons for that. And sure, you can get more velocity. Here's what I like about Travis Wood. This is the percentage of time he's had the platoon advantage, right? In 2013, 25%. 2014, 25%. Last year, 35%. This year, 50%. He's being put in situations where he's more likely to succeed because he doesn't have to face the other guys. He can drop the pitch that's not really working for him. And I think that's kind of an underrated reason why these starters can get more impressive on their bullpen.
3-1 to count to Bryce Harper. The last time that Wood allowed a run in an outing, May 25th. He has been in a nice run since then. 8 consecutive outings without being scored upon, including an extended outing of 4 innings in May 30th against the Dodgers. Just enough off the plate. Boy, I don't know that I remembered that kind of giddy up from the left arm of Wood.
Look at the extension there, 5.4, and you see he lost almost 2 miles an hour.
Right.
To Harper, it only looked like it was about 92 miles an hour. Speaking of which, Harper should be killing 92-mile-an-hour fastballs down the middle. He should be.
He's 0 for 4 in his career against Wood. A couple of walks in that matchup. Been a lot of fastballs. Looking for a big breaking ball. Haven't seen it yet. He's on. There's your tying run. Things can change quickly in baseball, folks. Really, really quickly. You know, the mindset of Dusty Baker is, let's go ahead and get Mr. Kelly and have him start playing catch down there. Does that plan on tying it or taking the lead?
Yeah, nothing you can do about that. I mean, expand your zone. That's not going to help.
Wood has not rolled up a double play this year. There's the first breaking ball. Almost like a cut fastball there. And I think it is a cutter.
Yeah, 4-seam cutter and slider. That's what he does.
Yeah, that's the majority of what he throws. He'll sprinkle in some extra grips on the baseball. They'll have a conversation. This is an assignment. Bryce Harper, Daniel Murphy to get things going. Chris Bosio, the pitching coach, will make a visit out there.
So Chris Bosio, I think, is one of the guys who doesn't get enough credit. Jake Arrieta obviously comes over from Baltimore and turns into a guy. Cubs signed today to a minor league contract Brian Maddox, who was for a while, like Jake Arrieta, a prospect in the Orioles system, a starting pitching prospect, never really made it work, had some decent years as a reliever, and then really fell apart this year. I would be fascinated to see if they can turn him around in Chicago, because they really do need another lefty reliever. Who could be that guy?
Wood does a nice job holding runners. Obviously, you've got a pretty good one in Bryce Harper standing over there, a good athlete and a dangerous base runner. And he keeps Harper close.
Bosio is a guy who actually predates Joe Madden, and I think it speaks to how he is regarded in the industry, that a high-profile, big-money new manager comes in. A lot of guys would want their own guy. They'd want their guy in that role. But Joe Madden thought enough of Chris Bosio that he kept him on.
Squared it up. But it stays in a big part of the ballpark. And he just continues to attack at that fastball. He's looking to hit the bats.
Murphy's had a tough luck night. That's his third off the bat 100+ mile an hour with nothing to show for it.
Yeah, you beat me too at 100, 102, and 103. Nothing to show for it. That's just not right.
Joe Maddon's getting busy with regard to moving players around. Maybe a double switch is coming out to have a conversation. Cahill warming down there.
Yeah, did you notice on that last play? So that was a line out to center field. Routine play, right? Dexter Fowler is playing deep, and that's been a big thing for the Cubs this year. Last year, he was the shallowest center fielder, tied with Adam Jones at just under 300 feet, and now he's moved back by nearly 20 feet, specifically because of plays like that. They're happy to let the balls fall in if they have to because it's just singles. They don't want to let the extra base hits go over their head, and you saw it right there. That was an easy play that he might not have been able to get to it.
Hector Rondon coming out of the bullpen. I think there may be a new second baseman as well. We'll see. It looked like Zobrist was walking off the field with his teammate Travis Wood. 3-2 is the score. 5-out save, guys.
I like it, Darren. Rondon is a guy who hasn't pitched. He hasn't had a save since June the 6th. So, again, it's because the Cubs are winning a lot of games by reasonably wide margins. They haven't used him a lot. He's 11 for 11 in saves and 22 straight saves going back to last season. So he's been really reliable and a reasonably fresh arm. He hasn't been pitched to that point.
Yeah, he's a Rule 5 pick, believe it or not, from Cleveland after he missed like almost 3 full years due to arm injuries. So far this year, he's pitched 20 innings, 29 strikeouts, and 2 walks. That is absolutely dominating. What he really did is he ditched for the most part his sinker, his two-seamer. He used to throw it a little more to try to get grounders. What he's basically said is, I don't need that anymore. I have a 4-seam fastball. I can throw it 95 miles an hour, 96 miles an hour, and I'm going to blow it past you. Now, when he gets into the game, watch something here. He's throwing more strikes in the zone, up by 8 percentage points, but he's getting fewer swings on them. He's actually getting a ton of called strikes. Guys just can't seem to get a good look at that ball. He's up from 24% called strikes to 32% called strikes. And he's been really dominating this year, and I think no one's really noticed it just because he's not getting a lot of quote-unquote save opportunities. He's just striking out the guys he gets the chance to.
Five outs standing between a Cubs hard-fought road victory. And what the Nationals hope would be a nice bounce back. He's rolled up 1 double play this year if you're looking for a quick fix and an out. And it is almost exclusively, as we mentioned, fastball side of the walk rate has dropped dramatically. The strikeout rate has gone up dramatically this year for the Venezuelan native. He began his career as a Cleveland Indians free agent signee in 2004.
This is the first time all year they've brought him in the opening.
So that's interesting to me. You know, you hear managers say all the time that there's no big games in the regular season. It's every day is the same. Doesn't this feel like a situation where Joe Maddon recognizes that this is a big series? Yeah. Let's bring the guy in the 8th for 5 outs?
Absolutely right. And they're not in the same division, obviously, and they're not going to be fighting for the wild card, but it's very easy to see these two teams matching up again in the NLCS. And I bet you Joe Maddon would love to go into that in October if it comes to that and say, hey, guys, remember this team? They think they're good. We won every single game, and they have so far.
It's a 1.33 ERA for the right-hander, on for the 23rd time this year. Well over a strikeout an inning, as we mentioned. And Ryan Zimmerman, who has been squaring up the baseball this year. An opportunity to do so and to make a difference in this game. He's amongst the who's who. Zimmerman is an exit velocity.
Now those are some names up there. Right? Trumbo's been crushing the ball. Cruz, David Ortiz, and Christian Yelich is having a fantastic year. It's really, really good to have high exit velocity. Now, we did talk about how badly Giancarlo Stanton is struggling, and that's true. He's also been striking out about 45% of the time over the last month. So exit velocity, really helpful and useful, only if you actually make contact.
Defense pretty much straight up. Bryant's moved to third. Baez is second. Almora is now the left fielder. So as we thought, base hit right field. Toward the corner that one goes. Hayward up with it. He cuts it off. Harper hustling into third. Runners on first and third. 1 out. Your tying run is now 90 feet away. Ryan Zimmerman. There's some exit velocity for you.
103 miles off the bat. Well placed to the opposite side, too. It wasn't actually a bad pitch. That was low and away. It was just a really good job of going out and getting it and taking it to the right side. Hitting it hard off the bat, 103 miles an hour. That's the Zimmerman we've seen do that for years.
This was a tough night for him before that. Hit it 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts. And he struggled against the Cubs this year that we talked about earlier. They have picked on him and dared other hitters dared Zimmerman to beat him by passing on other hitters, putting other hitters on base. And here's a situation where it gives him a chance to at least tie the game.
A real nice piece of hitting right there. And now, Darren, we have the broadcaster's nightmare here. Rendon versus Rondon.
That's exactly right. And the pitcher's nightmare is a hanging slider, and he just got away with one. No balls and 2 strikes to count. He wants to throw him that same slider now, but he wants it in the dirt, and that makes the catcher's position very important suddenly. A situation like this where you're tying runners at third, you got a wild arm with wicked stuff, and front and center, the veteran David Ross. Instead went with that slider away and off the plate. How about spoiling a pitch like that at the last minute?
There's value to that. You know, it's like huge value. It's really hard to kind of quantify, but taking that pitch and obviously not striking out on it, but not letting it get past you, there's a great deal of skill involved.
He's 0 for 3. He struck out 3 times. And really hot. He's been on base 40 times in his last 25 games. It's been that kind of a string. 40 times. But he backhanded that ball. Woo, David.
Is that luck right there, or is that skill? Because that is
probably
not ideal.
Probably a little both. He maybe wasn't expecting it down there and has the chops to go get it with his backhand.
You can tell they're trying to work Rendon away. It's a bit too far.
Got another pitch or two to play with. They want to strike out. Again. Taking it on balance very comfortably is Anthony, and he was struck out, flied out to center, struck out a pair of times. He was 2 for 4 with an RBI last night in the opener of this series.
How badly does he want him to chase that pitch? Gotta get a little closer than that.
Rendon with Harper at third, representing the tying run. Harper taking a huge secondary every time if a ball hops away at all. This crowd is on its feet. Breaking ball, fly ball, right field. We are tied at 3. He took a good breaking ball off the shoe tops and served it into right. We've got Ben Revere taking advantage last inning, and now Anthony Rendon, Washington with some effective little ball.
All 3 runs have been scored on sac flies so far. You don't see that too often.
And that's a case where Rondon probably made his pitch. I don't think he expected that one to get lifted into the air.
That probably was ball foot. How do you let that go? You don't see a ball under the strike zone that turns into a sac fly like that all too often.
So we are tied at 3. What a game we have in the bottom half of the inning. And now Danny Espinosa singled and scored. It was a bunt single. Flied to center, hit by a pitch and score. 0-1 the count. Leave nothing for Sands. Full sprint until he sees the catcher cleared and standing. The go-ahead run is at first. Espinoza, 10 for his last 20. With 2 walks, and he was also hit by a pitch. For a tight fastball in on the knuckles. Chase the fastball up, let her high, down he goes.
That is a gift. That is a gift to the pitcher when you go after something up there.
Found him overly aggressive in that situation and a good rising four-seam fastball. Undone, obviously frustrated that a pitch that he threw that was just about as good, if not better, a breaking ball to shoe tops ended up being a fly ball to left field. Chicago Cubs, they play for the 9th. They play for the win. They've been winning a ton this year. .694 winning percentage. You know there's some good things happening surrounding StatCast and the Chicago Cubs. Here's the best from the gentleman from the north side.
Drives that ball in the air out into deep right center. Hayward is back on it. And did he catch it? What a catch by Hayward.
Well, you're going to see it here. He's starting to cheat that way a little bit before the pitch. But what a great route. And again, the willingness to, he never takes his eye off the ball to find the wall. He's got to know he's getting close. Just great concentration.
So you can imagine the force. Well, that's a good sign. He's on his feet. Soler cranks it deep to left. Way out of here, off the board.
This is a little bit of a hanger. And boy, did Soler ever get into that one. My goodness, this ball is crushed.
And hit the bottom part of the video board in left. Chris Bryant, towering blast. How far will it go? Off the board. Wow.
Now that was a whop. That ball was crunched to left field. It would have sailed onto Waveland Avenue, but before it could do that, it put a dent in that new video board. It hit about a third of the way up. Towering drive.
Yeah, this young, athletic, powerful, dangerous team made for StatCast. As we go to the 9th inning, a playoff atmosphere. Mike documented it earlier. Maybe a guy like John Lackey finding a little more velocity because of the warm air, the big crowd, the excitement, all out in front of him. And it's time for Solis to go back to work. Sammy struck out 1 in a scoreless frame his last time out. The ERA at 1.35 on the season now. He backs Addison Russell out of there. Russell has grounded back to the mound. He has walked and he has struck out. And he won't chase out of the zone that time. Oakland's first pick, 11th overall in the 2012 draft. That's a pretty good take if they hold him up there. He didn't go around. That's the one thing that's improved for him, Mike, this year. He's drawing more walks. Walk rate of 10 up from last year 8, and league average is about 8.
It's always good to see a young player kind of improve his plate discipline. It's a really good sign for the kind of hitter.
Ooh. There's that discipline you're talking about. Pretty good pitch. Go-ahead run is on. David Ross singled in a run back in the 4th inning. We could really flavor a meal with that salt and pepper beard, couldn't you? And this is a man speaking from experience.
Grandpa Rossi, they call him. He is the most popular teammate I've ever come across. There's no stat for this, but you just don't hear players talked about by their teammates the way he is. And I know last year when they went deep, there was kind of a win it for Rossi type of mentality out in Chicago. But again, he's performing, and he's performing against left-handed hitters, as we talked about earlier. I mean, his slash against lefties this is not just a backup catcher who's in there for defense.
Yeah, we all know why he's there, why he's on the team. It's for John Lester, but he's really still bringing enough with the bat. That's a nice bunt right there.
Yeah, little things for Ross as he moves Addison Russell in the scoring position. You're mentioning those numbers. He was coming in 9 for 28 with 8 walks against lefties, a 459 on base. Small sample size, but a 459 on base this year. Miguel Montero sits usually in the other house with that one, in the other side of the plate, and struggles against lefties. Take a look back at our StatCast replay powered by Amazon Web Services. First off, the Zimmerman hit to the right side, exit velocity.
You see only a 4-degree launch angle, which means it barely gets off the ground, but that's okay. It's all about the placement right there.
Hit on the line, base hit into left center field toward the gap it goes. The Chicago Cubs are in business. Addison Russell, his wheels. He wheels around, he scores. Excitement in the dugout, getting it done. Albert Almora Jr. Almora drives him in. We talked about all of Madden's changes. He put Almora out in left field, and he gives the Cubs the lead.
He's one of the young players, Darren, that the Cubs got because they were bad for a number of years, because they went this rebuild mode that we see so many teams following now. He was their first rounder in 2012, 6th overall, part of that stretch where the Cubs was 5 straight losing seasons, and they picked way up in the draft. And he's a young player who's just getting his feet wet now in the major leagues as a result of that.
101 miles an hour off the bat for Almora. And what's interesting is he's probably better known for his defense. I mean, he could be a major league center fielder. His defense is really his calling card. He's actually only been okay in the minors offensively. That league average in AAA, that league average in AA. It might be his glove that's going to carry him, but if you can hit the ball like that in the big leagues, I think you'll be just fine.
That was a great reaction and part of that crop that Adam was talking about. Cubs this year in their first 16 picks picked 15 college pitchers. The opposite of what they did for several years. Although Chris Bryant, a collegiate player, Kyle Schwarber, a collegiate player as well, but talented high schoolers like Baez and Almora. Adam, there's not a miss on this list.
No, there's not. And Ian Happ is probably the name the non-Cubs fans don't know, but he's their number 3 prospect and infielder. So you're right. It's no misses, and that is about as good as you can orchestrate a rebuild. I think the Cubs bought other teams some goodwill, teams that are sort of taking the backup now, Phillies, Brewers, etc., because they've done this sort of a textbook rebuild. But part of that is you got to hit on those top picks, and we'll see if the teams going through the losses now are able to do that in the coming years.
Like the Braves, a team like the
exactly.
Braves.
It doesn't do you any good to get those high picks if you whiff on. And the Cubs, there's no whiffs on that list.
And it's interesting because the Astros got 3 straight #1 picks, and they did whiff on 2 of them.
Sure.
Obviously, Correa looks like he's going to be a superstar, but they didn't sign Brady Aiken because of the whole injury thing, and Mark Capella didn't really work out the way they wanted it to. And, it's interesting that they have rebuilt and they've become a contender, but not because of those top picks.
Our T-Mobile greater coverage cam from right behind home plate. You see the runner in scoring position, Almora. Albert played in the Arizona Fall League at 19 years old. It's a good breaking ball from Solis.
Almora's a player who's getting a look now because of these injuries we talked about earlier. Schwarber out, with Soler out. Almora's played a little bit in left field, and Joe Madden has said his defense has opened some eyes a little bit. So he's not hit. He's not been a big offensive player so far in his career, but so far sticking on the bench because of partly what he does defensively. Obviously tonight he gets the big hit.
Fly ball right center field. Some poor communication, some missteps, and Harper nearly collides.
That was ugly and almost scary.
Ian Rivera with smiles. All of us common folks that are looking on don't understand how the world's greatest athletes can go through this and laugh about it. Taking a look at the base hit and the RBI for Almora. Statcast is powered by Amazon Web Services.
101 miles an hour off the bat is real good. 7-degree launch angle means it was barely above a ground ball. So that's why I didn't go all that far. And that's why it's also really important to go to batted ball direction, because you don't want to hit it right at somebody.
Fowler is erased, and now a chance for Hayward, and he takes strike one. So a second chance for Rondon, who came on and threw 12 pitches, gave up a hit.
Solis was working on a run of 11 consecutive scoreless outings. And obviously, you're never going to go an entire season without giving up a run, but that's a pretty good stretch. Just ruined here by the Cubs in the 9th inning.
Revere and Harper. You need them both, certainly, but Harper, you want to keep those knees. And you know what he did there that was smart? There was going to be a collision. His legs were not going to be involved. He wanted to do a slide there to avoid him. Breaking ball, and down on strikes goes Jason Hayward. But the Cubs on the road. Remember, the last 2 years since the start of the 15 season, where these rosters really pulled even with regard to talent, the Cubs are 8-4 against the Washington Nationals, trying to make it 9-4, and Almora with a great hit there. You know, it's interesting, part of a young crop of talented baseball players for the Chicago Cubs. And you think about, you know, the versatility guys with the likes of Baez, who can play a couple places. Bryant, we forget that Bryant can play a couple of places. You know, and you think about Almora, he's one of those guys. You can put him in a couple of places. You can use him late. Versatility for Joe Madden. That's a good example there. I mean, I know he's obviously dresses out that day and he doesn't start. He's going to be an important pinch hitter, but there's some versatility and athleticism for the Cubs.
You make a great point. And obviously, Ben Zobrist is the first guy you think of when you think of versatility. But what's funny is that when Fowler came back, they traded Chris Coughlin to the Cubs, and to the A's. And what the A's said is, we want you to be Ben Zobrist. We want you to play all over the place. Didn't really work out so well in Oakland. Now he's back with the Cubs, so they have the actual Zobrist and they have a mini Zobrist, and they can really do a whole bunch of interesting things there.
So here's what I have for you, Adam. There are many front offices where individuals come up with good ideas, or the manager and the coach come up with good ideas, or coaches, I should say. But they vacate, and one doesn't back the player, one doesn't back a bold decision respectfully, and you can understand it. They're concerned about their careers and their jobs. You have to have a bunch of people top to bottom that trust one another to trot Baez out there all the time and watch him strike out 1,000,000 times, to see Almora in a certain spot, to make bold moves, to let David Ross go out there and start. In other words, this is more of a philosophical thing, and they all seem to be on the same page from the manager all the way up to the top.
Well, so much of this has to do with the manager, I think. And Joe Madden has this way of engendering trust with his players. You hear guys like David Ross and others talk about him as being very genuine. They say they see fake a lot, and with Joe Madden, it's not fake. They're a group, I think part of this was timing, is they rose out of this rebuild and were able to filter players in and get them their feet wet just a little bit as they're still not quite there. Bryant, you know, I think I would put Rizzo maybe in that category as a player who's just gotten better. And now that these players have just a little bit of experience, they get a taste of the playoffs next year, and now they're able to really succeed. So I think the timing of this, and part of this is what makes it so difficult. You can't say one rebuild is like the next. Every rebuild is just a little bit different, and I think the Cubs have been very fortunate in terms of the way they're timing it.
I think Joe Madden's been very fortunate too. Just
absolutely
getting there, like as Arrieta got really good, as these guys came up, I think he gets a ton of credit deservedly. I also think he's got the most talented roster in baseball, and it's a perfect fit.
Yeah, that makes a big deal, and I mean too, the trust of Theo to Jed to the scouting director, letting a guy like Billy Williams, I'm sure, weigh in with his veteran air, and then going on down to the manager. And if that doesn't happen, if that trust isn't there, then it's not working the way you need it to work. Clint Robinson gets an opportunity to pinch hit. Young man out of Jefferson City, Missouri, and Troy University this year at 230. 310 on base, 377 slug. Has homered a pair of times.
He has odd reverse splits for his career. Obviously doesn't have that much of a career sample size, but he's been a little bit better against lefties and righties.
He hits that one a mile high, and that time he comes up empty. 4 of 17 now this year as a pinch hitter. He's definitely one of their options as a pinch hitter. 1 out and 2 away. What turns out to be a shocking when you just felt like the Nationals were just building momentum, going to snatch a win. 2 outs to go, but this would be one that would be a feather in the cap for the Cubs. Wilson Ramos. Inside corner with that one. Ramos struck out back in the 7th inning as he came on to pinch hit. Rolls the slider out towards short. Fielding, firing. Bell tie across the diamond. Addison Russell to Rizzo. 2 outs in the inning.
If you have a 96-mile-an-hour fastball, as Rondon does, and one even half-decent secondary pitch, and his is better than that. His slider's pretty good. That's really all you need to be a successful reliever now. Because you're not seeing guys a second time through. You can throw that heat. You can get them to chase that slider. Really, he's an underrated pitcher because he can do stuff like this.
6 pitches for 2 outs, too. After the first inning, 12 pitches. It felt like he threw about 25. The way that was stressful at bats, obviously with runners on base, but a much cleaner inning so far for him.
It all comes down to Ben Revere.
On a backhand, ranging, firing, that's the ball game. Trusting players in other positions, believing they can play in other positions, that's what has to happen. That was Baez into the hole, and a fabulous play. Put him where you need him, because athleticism plays everywhere, and the Cubs are victorious by a score of 4-3, folks. The Chicago Cubs are 44-19. 44-19 on the season.
What a 9th inning there. 7 pitches for Rondon against the overly aggressive Nationals. That ended really quickly. Cubs are on pace to win about 450 games.
Incredible to see what occurred, and a fabulous night. Watch this range. He didn't have a great first step. Maybe playing in his most comfortable position. You've got Revere running, who's getting up the line. Look that accurate arm from the sidearm flip. That's a great look by Ben Revere. In other words, how in the world did you get there, and how did you get any velocity on that throw from the sidearm? So here it is, the 2 stuntmen that end the game. Almora with the hit, and then Baez with the play. That's what you and I were talking about, Adam. And it was incredible. Let's take a look back at some of the sights and the sounds. We'll get back to the discussion about it. Some of the sights and sounds of this one, another Cubs victory.